Yo, 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 how are we doing? Everybody getting ready for day two of the 2025 NFL draft. 49ers ended up with Michael Williams, the number 11 overall pick, the edge player out of Georgia. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, online about the pick. What do people think of it? The pick is definitely growing on me. I think for anyone who was here yesterday when they saw my reaction, it was, let's just say, lukewarm to it. Definitely wouldn't have been my first choice when it comes to who I would have taken. I really liked, a guy like Walter Nolan, big Derek Harmon guy. I maybe would have tried to move down a number of picks, maybe pick up like an extra third. Even if you didn't get like the true value that you were seeking, I think it would have been maybe a little bit of a better option. However, we have Michael Williams, and I think it's a good pick, and it's one that I am willing to, I'll put the benefit of the doubt with the guys like Robert Saleh, with a guy like Chris Kocurek, John Lynch. They've clearly done their homework on the guy. They met with him a number of times. There was word, and I believe there was talk that the Niners tried to trade up a few picks to make sure they got Michael Williams. He's going to have a really, really good mentor in a guy like Nick Bosa. You can just imagine how much it's going to help him in training camp when we have when you have someone going up against a guy like Trent Williams, against, even though Colt McKivitz is far from the best right tackle in the NFL, but even just going up against a guy who's played a lot of football in the NFL, Colt McKivitz, and then possibly some rookies. I mean, today and tomorrow is really the meat and the potatoes of the NFL draft. Like, the first round, of course, it gets all the hype, all the big names that we've been talking about for so many months. Are the ones who go in the first round, of course, but this is where you really build out your roster. Think about it from the 49ers perspective with some of the best players on the team. George Kittle, we all know, 5th round pick. Fred Warner, 3rd round pick. Deommodore Lenoir, 5th round pick. Malik Mustafa, 4th round pick. Jawan Jennings, 7th round pick. So, and this is a draft where I think so many teams have come out and said, and just from like looking at it and analyzing it, that there's so many really good players still available. And you'll see I have a list on the bottom. I'll kind of be updating it as we go, but you'll see there's a list scrolling across the bottom of the guys who I would really like the 49ers to consider when it comes to pick 43 overall. I think there's going to be lots of trades. Do I think the 49ers will be involved in them? Maybe. We'll see. But I think there's going to be a lot of trades coming up. And so there's a lot of different players who I could see the 49ers in so many different directions. I can see the 49ers going in. One of the things which I think that you're going to see, or that I expect to see, is, so we have 3 picks today, 43 overall, 75 and 100. Defensive tackle is probably, it's the weakest position group that we have on the roster. I think when you look strictly at defensive tackle, yo, Daniel, how are you doing, buddy? Always good to see you, my man. Always good to see you. Thanks for stopping by, dude. Pleasure as always. I think when you look at defensive tackle, the 49ers defensive tackle room is, I think it's the worst defensive tackle room in the NFL. And then you let go of Malik Collins, you let go of Javon Hargrave. I understand the reasons for both of those moves, but that still means that you have to replace them with somebody. And I think this is where you're going to see that happen. I wouldn't be surprised with 2 of the 3 picks if we go on the at the defensive tackle position. You'll see on my list below 2 guys who I really like at pick 43. Could be Darius Alexander. The one knock on him is that the dude is going to be 25 years old for the start of the season. It's as a 37-year-old, it's a little bit weird to be saying, oh, this guy's kind of old. But, for a rookie coming in at 25 years old, not, you think maybe 7-8 years, you're kind of hoping then things are going to maybe kind of slow down a little bit. So, but hey, look, if you draft a guy and if he's on your team for 8 years, that means you got a good player. So that's something to think about too. I really like Darius Alexander. He's one of those guys where I think he's a 3-down guy. You can have him out there, whether it's first down against the run. I think he's really, really solid. He can really get after the passer. And I think he just has that like split move where he can just dart in. And even if he's not getting sacks, he can be disruptive. And, those are one of the things where, I think it's really to get into like another conversation sidetrack, like a little bit, like kind of quickly. I think what they track QB, like say pressures, and I think that pressures are important. Sacks are the glory numbers that that always like defensive linemen and linebackers are always looking to get. But sometimes pressures can be just as important, if not more important, because if you can disrupt the timing of a quarterback, maybe that leads to an interception or even just an incomplete. And if you think about it, an incomplete pass compared to like a sack where you lose like maybe a yard or two, not the biggest difference in the world. But I think Darius Alexander is a guy who can put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and that's something that the 49ers struggle with. But the big thing is going to be, can we stop the run? Last season in particular, the 49ers were awful against the run. The other thing that the 49ers were awful with last season was forcing turnovers. And I think Darius Alexander, along with a guy like Micah Williams, if he can develop like the 49ers expect, that's something that can like really be a game changer. I do think that some of the blame has to be put on Nick Sorensen, where he wasn't great. And now we're going from Nick Sorensen to a guy like Robert Saleh, which is a night and day difference. It's just such a massive leap when it comes to coaching, when it comes to being able to put players into good positions where they can utilize their talents to make big plays. And that's something that the 49ers lacked, especially as the season went on. I think Nick Sorensen's defense got figured out. Halfway through the season, it was like, okay, we can't really stop anybody. Go back to the game against like Green Bay, and God, that was such an ugly game. And some of the games later in the season too, where the defense just really struggled. It seemed like offensive coordinators had basically figured him out. So Robert Saleh, that's not going to happen with Robert Saleh. But then he has the backup of some really good assistant coaches. So, you think you bring in Gus Bradley, who's a former defensive coordinator, former head coach, which I think is really going to help out a guy like Robert Saleh, where he's going to have that trust where they can really build a defense. But to bring it all back to the draft, I think getting someone like a Darius Alexander at 43 would be a huge get for the 49ers. Look at defensive tackle TJ Sanders out of South Carolina. That's another guy that you could really be looking at to be a difference maker. I did talk about, look, for the defensive tackle position, we need to be able to stop the run, and we just weren't able to do that last year. And there are some really, really good players who can do that in this draft. And this draft is probably the one thing where I think this actually works out really well for the 49ers is, yes, I think that we probably have the worst defensive tackle room in the NFL, but this is such a deep class for defensive tackles. And when you look at guys who can stop the run, a little bit later on, I think you're looking at Alfred Collins out of Texas. One of my guys, and I know that Johnny Dell from Johnny Dell's Football Academy, he's a big Jamari Caldwell guy, and so am I. I love what he did at Oregon. He's one of those guys where he is just huge, but he can move so quickly as well. I think he's one of those guys, just so much potential there to be just an absolute game wrecker. Someone else who I like is Cameron Jackson out of Florida. Again, another guy who can just, I think you can plug him in and he can just help stop the run. And I think that's something that the 49ers are absolutely going to need moving into this season, because if you can't stop the run, then you are just done for. Just not going to happen. You're not going to be able to succeed in on defense in the NFL, because if you can just every time get 5-6 yards, we saw some games, the game against Green Bay, we've seen it before, and we're just teams, if they can just run it down your throat, well, then it limits your offensive opportunities, but also just the opposing offense is just going to be consistently in really, really good situations. We are about 10 minutes away from when they'll be kicking off day 2 of the NFL draft. And this is, again, one where I'm going to be going as long as I can. Hopefully we'll get some people in here, I'm sure, once the draft kicks off. But I do see the 49ers as of right now. Well, I'm actually just watching myself now. I think with the 49ers, look, 3-pick schedule for today. Who knows how much we'll actually end up with? Will we trade down? Will we trade up? Really, really interesting. Again, day one tends to get a lot of. I mean, of course, it's the star power. All like the big names go on day one. But I think day two for the draft is probably my favorite day when it comes, just the second, the third round. Day three, you got the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. That can be a little bit sluggish. And then you have the undrafted free agent when that's always like a crazy mess. Once the draft finishes, where you're desperately trying to sign guys. But I think that day two is probably my favorite. And it's cool. Niners have 3 picks here. Don't also rule out the possibility that there could be trades, for players or maybe players going. So I think that could be something as well. I mean, maybe like a Kirk Cousins gets traded to the Steelers. Who knows what could happen? And that's like the crazy thing with the draft is we see it happen all the time. I mean, if I told you 24 hours ago that the Jaguars would have traded up to get Travis Hunter, you all would have said I was crazy, but it happens. But yeah, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the screen and I want to share this one. Cool. All right. So this is on ESPN. These are their best remaining players. And let's kick it off here. You've got Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan. This guy probably would have been easily a top 15 pick, but there's injury concerns. And that's such a big red flag. And the fact that he was so highly rated by, and that was like the general consensus, the fact that he fell out of the first round, I think that speaks volumes. And maybe these injury issues are a little bit worse than we expected. That being said, I don't think that there would be any surprise if he is one of the first, second, or third players picked today. I don't think the Cleveland Browns, I mean, they seem pretty set at cornerback, but I think there's a lot of teams that could be looking for a guy like Will Johnson. I think you could see like the Tennessee Titans, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Patriots, the Bears. There's so many guys who could go for a talented player like a Will Johnson. They have Mike Green, and Mike Green, wow. So what a polarizing guy is Mike Green. Top 10 talent when you look at Mike Green, and he plays a premier position. Playing on the edge, he is a guy where you could expect him to, you almost think that his floor would be getting double-digit sacks. Like we saw what he did at the Senior Bowl, super impressive. There's that famous rep that he had against Josh Connerly, who was drafted 29th overall by the Washington Commanders, where he basically just floors the guy. Just one rep, and everyone loses and wins reps. But, there is something to be said for Mike Green. And again, just a fantastic prospect in terms of the player on the field, but some serious off the field concerns, clearly, considering when you see how talented the guy is. And he wasn't taken on day one. And everyone always needs more pass rushers. Look at the Atlanta Falcons trading up, giving up a lot to get James Pierce Jr., who, and I think as strictly a player, I think Mike Green is a better prospect than James Pierce Jr. However, he's still available. Teams didn't have to trade up and give up future first-round picks to get him. He's still sitting right here, but there are off-the-field issues. There's some allegations against him kind of stemming back from his past. Not ideal, but it is one of those things where it's, an unfortunate situation, I think, for, just one of those things. We got Juke Join here. Welcome back, buddy. So I'm going to be doing and going for as long as I can for day two. It's going to be a long night. Appreciate you being here, Juke Joint. Do feel free to throw in your thoughts, Juke, on some of the picks, what you think, who you think we should take. I have like a list of available players below who I think would be. And Spy Nick Danger in the house. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go, Spy. So I have like you'll see like the kind of the list below of players who I really like. And this is for the 49ers. This is not, I'm not saying that different teams are going to have different needs, and that's completely understandable. But yeah, don't forget to like the stream. Appreciate y'all. But this is my list for San Francisco and who I think the 49ers should be targeting. Yeah, again, different teams will have different needs. But you look at, Will Johnson and Mike Green, both of these guys were seen as, top half of the first round picks. They both fall for different reasons. Will Johnson, again, it's the injury concerns. Who knows what, clear he hasn't worked out at all as far as I'm concerned. So we'll have to see kind of what happens there. I think maybe somewhere on day 2, you'd expect probably in the second round, where when you look at his talent, that a team, I could see maybe late second round. If the injury concerns are as bad as, could be potential, I think maybe a team that doesn't have like an immediate right now need for a cornerback, where they could maybe wait on him for, put him on injured reserve. Maybe he misses the first half of the season, and then you have a great player moving forward. But yeah, and then we just talked about Mike Green, where there's some off the field accusations, so not ideal. A guy who I really like here is Donovan Ezaraku. Now, look, we did go edge. Oh, Christopher Leclerc, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you. Feel free to drop your thoughts in the chat as we go through day 2 of the 2025 NFL draft. So Juke says, I like either a defensive tackle, linebacker, cornerback. Yeah, I think all of those are pretty big, significant positions of need for San Francisco. I think defensive tackle is by far the biggest one, but I could also see, linebacker, cornerback, offensive line. You'd love to get a center, maybe like a Jared Wilson, potentially. Maybe day 3, you're looking at like a Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State. I kind of like Jake Majors out of Texas. Do I think he'll be like a Pro Bowl guy? Maybe not, but I think he could be a solid center for like the next 5-10 years. A ton of experience playing at Texas. But I think that's absolutely an option as well. Some of the other options, I think, and that's the big thing is, I want to say for the offensive line, I think you want to get a center, and then you want to get an offensive tackle. We lost Jalen Moore in free agency, went to the evil Kansas City Chiefs. But we need a swing tackle. Plus, Trent Williams obviously not getting any younger. And then you look at a guy like Colton McKivitz, who is going into the last year of his deal. So we'll kind of have to see how all of that works out. And when you consider some of the money that players were getting in free agency, I don't think that Colton McKivitz, unless Colton McKivitz has a huge leap in his performance, I don't think he's going to be back in 2026 when you consider just the money that, even a guy like Jalen Moore, who I think is he was an okay player, are getting. So, but going back to some of the players available, my number one guy is Donovan Ezaraku, who the 49ers could get. Look, of course, we did draft Mykel Williams in the first round, and he's going to be probably your day 1 starter across from Nick Bosa, and he's good against the run. A lot of potential as a pass rusher. Remember, he did play on injured ankle for most of the season, still able to make some plays. But I think if you get a guy like Ezaraku as like your, third down pass rushing guy, you could have Mykel kick inside, and then you have Ezaraku on the outside. That could be a really good tandem. And I know I was talking a little bit ago about just the importance to stop the run. But if you can get after the passer, that's such a huge advantage too. And there are run-stopping defensive tackles available. Your Jamari Caldwell's, Cameron Jackson, Nazir Stackhouse. So there's guys available there. So Juke Joint, puts up, I like Minnesota, Ariante Ursere, or however you say it. Yeah, really good, really solid prospect. Super talented, and really athletic too. So I think he fits the profile of the 49ers. And I think he's someone, he played left tackle at Minnesota. And I think he's someone who the 49ers could absolutely target at pick 43, because, and I think who was the scouting guy for the Niners one of the head scouts said something like the Niners have very specific traits on what they look for at the offensive tackle position, like in terms of, whether it's like arm length, whether it's this, that, or the other. And I think Ursary meets those requirements in terms of like the athleticism and the size and everything like that. So if he's there, I could see that happening. I could absolutely see that happening. The one thing, I think ideally you mesh that, like, the talent with the need when it comes to, especially early on. Like in a perfect world, you're having, your first, second, third round picks contribute right away. Doesn't always happen, but ideally they are. He would be someone who I don't think we'd probably see much of in 2025 unless there's an injury. And I'm knocking on wood that does not happen, of course. Never want to see that. Also, let me pull up. I got to pull up because the draft, I think, day 2 has started. No, it's about to start. But yeah, I think that could be a really good option. And that's one of those picks where, yeah, maybe in 2025 it doesn't pay off, but maybe it's 2026, 2027. And we're like, thank God we drafted him and we got him. It could be a case where it could, in Ariante Ursary, be similar to when we drafted Joe Staley. Joe Staley, when we drafted him back in 2007, if you remember, his first year he played right tackle, and then his second year kicked over to left tackle, and he had, you could argue a Hall of Fame-ish type career. Joe Staley, one of the more favorite 49ers, I would say, of recent years. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see what happens here on day 2 of the NFL draft. It's about to kick off here. So many good players left available. But yeah, I do like that comment, Juke, where I think Ursary could be an option there. Again, this is the ESPN. You'll see my list kind of scrolling across the bottom, but I think the ESPN list of best available, some of it I kind of agree with, some of it I don't. I don't see the Niners going anywhere near Mike Green, just with those off the field issues. If the Niners do want to go wide receiver, you got some really good options here. You got Jaden Higgins, size, speed, production. He has it all. Decent route runner too. He's an option from Iowa State, and I'd imagine Brock Purdy would be happy to have Jaden Higgins. Luther Burden, a lot of people shocked that he fell out of the first round. No one is Deebo Samuel, but if you had to say the closest, wide receiver to a Deebo Samuel, could be Luther Burden. Not the biggest guy, but somehow manages to break tackles and get those yak yards. And so that could be someone that, if the Niners do want to go wide receiver, that's an option. Remember, with wide receiver, Ayuk, I'm guessing Ayuk is probably out until midseason. I think there's a little bit of cautious optimism that he might be able to make it back for week 1. I don't see that happening, but is it possible? Sure. But then you think about, we signed Demarcus Robinson in free agency, and Demarcus Robinson, according to, I think it was Matt Mayoko, had said that they kind of expect him to be suspended for the first 3 games for a DUI charge. So that's not great. And then, of course, you have Jennings, you have Pearsall, you have Cowing. You have a couple of other guys too. You look at Jalen Royals. Oh, that's a good call from Utah State. But then you look at, there's other guys like Russell Gage, Isaiah Hodgins, but you don't really want them playing many snaps. There are some really good free agents, and that's the other thing too. Good to see Julian Peterson. He's going to be announcing the Niners' 2nd and 3rd round picks. I didn't like that he left the Niners for the Seahawks. However, he didn't really do great with them, so maybe that was a blessing in disguise. But former 49er, former first-round pick Julian Peterson will be announcing the picks for the Niners, wearing the old-school Niner jersey, number 98. Good player. Nice interception against the New York Giants in the 2002 playoffs in that great comeback game. Jalen Royals, yeah, I think he's a guy in the 3rd round. That's maybe an option right there. I think Alec Iomaner, I'm probably pronouncing his last name incorrectly. I don't know if it's Iomanor or Iomaner, but it's someone that's another option too. Out of Stanford, the Niners have met with him. They know him, familiar with him. They like his game, willing blocker, and that's one of the first things that Shanahan is always going to be when it comes to his wide receivers. But when you look at just remember that there are, as much as we're going to say like we need to fill this need, we need to fill that need, there are still some really good there's some really good free agents left at some key positions. So we did draft Michael Williams, but let's say, there's still, even though he's up there, you still have like Von Miller on the edge, you still have Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen, guys, a little bit older, sure, but they can still play in this league. So Cleveland Browns are officially on the clock. About 6.5 minutes to go for them to make a pick. A lot of times you see trades here, and like they would have been fielding calls over the last, however many 20 hours or so. So you might see a trade here, but I do like Jalen Royals. Ben is in here. I want Darius Alexander. Yeah, you'll see, Ben, that on my scrolling list for guys. I like Darius Alexander out of Toledo. Really holy Toledo. The only knock that I think people really have on him is his age. He's going to be 25 come the start of the season. So obviously an older prospect. However, I mean, people kind of freak out about that, and I get it to a certain degree. But, let's say if his, typically maybe 32, 33 is when players at that, I mean, you have guys at that position, Calais Campbell playing until he's 40. That is rare. But even if you have guys playing until they're 32 or 33, if you're like, well, if we're drafting a defensive tackle who's good and we have him for the next 7-8 years, I mean, that's still a damn successful pick in my eyes. So, but the Cleveland Browns, there are so many ways that the Cleveland Browns could go in. Remember, they took Mason Graham in the first round, trading down from 2 down to 5, and they're just showing now Deshaun Watson, that guy, he's going to be out for the entire upcoming season with an Achilles injury. They have Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. I think Flacco is going to be the starter there. You kind of have to assume it's going to be Flacco. He did pretty well with Kevin Stefanski before. And but do they go Shedeur Sanders? Maybe they're thinking we don't feel comfortable taking Shedeur in the first 5 picks, but maybe at 33, and they have another pick coming up at 36. So who knows? That could be an option too. COVID ruined a lot of careers. People had to stay in school. That's absolutely true. There's like guys who've been in school for like 5-6 years. So Juke, you're absolutely spot on. That is like the one knock. And I understand where people might say, well, I'd rather the guy who is, maybe he's 21, or Michael Williams is 20. He'll be 21 soon. And I get that 100%. I do understand that. But look, if he's a good player, and if you tell me in the second round, you're going to get a player who's still going to be on the team 8 years later, that means that it's a pretty darn good pick. At least that's kind of how I see it. So, ideally, yeah, sure. Look, if you can get the exact same player either at 21 or 25, you'll take the 21-year-old. But I mean, if you get a Darius Alexander, I'm not going to be unhappy with it. Cleveland Browns gonna Brown. They're such an odd team. I just never know what to think of the Cleveland Browns. They took such a big swing. Pick is in for the Browns, so there's no trade. So the Cleveland Browns, the pick is in. Last night when I was trying to predict picks, I got the first 4 right, and then I got the next 8, 9 wrong. So I'm not going to probably do that. And it's so hard to see what direction they could go in. They bolstered the defensive line. They actually signed, it was Malik Collins, a former Niner, who was here for a year. But Cleveland Browns pick is in. We'll see who's going to be announcing that. This is the time where, especially day 3, but what's going to happen is the pick is going to be in for ages, and they're going to take forever to actually announce the pick. So hopefully they can kind of stay on track a little bit, but I'm not really expecting that too much, to be fair. All right. Any day now. So that does put the Houston Texans are on the clock. You have Joe Thomas. What a guy. Joe Thomas, huh? What a player for the Cleveland Browns legend. And it's always amazing, the offensive linemen, when they retire, just how much weight they end up with. Like Joe Staley's the same way. So it looks like I'm seeing the U sign. So Maybe it's going to be a Miami Hurricane. I'm going to guess Elijah Arroyo would be my guess, but we'll have to wait and see. Carson Schwessinger, the linebacker out of UCLA, maybe UCLA. So Carson Schwessinger is drafted by the Cleveland Browns to open up day 2. So I am going to have to edit my list here. I'm going to have to take Carson Schwessinger off my list. So he is gone. Carson Schwessinger gone to the Cleveland Browns. Good pick there. Just one of those guys who I think he's going to be a leader. Do I think he'll ever be a elite best kind of linebacker in the league? They lose about 80 pounds. You're right. Yeah, offensive linemen after they retire. Now, so many offensive linemen are like 6'5" and above, so they're really tall dudes. But yeah, they end up losing a lot. But Carson Schwessinger goes to the Cleveland Browns. I think it's a good pick for them. They have a JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, pair Carson Schwessinger. You get a defensive tackle like Mason Graham in the first round. You're building that defense. I don't expect a ton from the Cleveland Browns this upcoming season, but maybe 2026 they get a new quarterback. But they're just positioning themselves in a situation where, building for the future. 408, how we doing, buddy? Good to see you, my man. Yeah, I've been doing okay. Ups and downs, life, life comes at you fast, as they say in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But yeah, I'm doing well. Super stoked for the draft. Glad to be here. Glad that you're here. Hopefully we'll hang out and we'll talk NFL draft. If anyone has any thoughts they want to, put down in the comments, feel free. If you want my thoughts or opinions on anyone currently in Jacksonville, you're over there with Travis Hunter, the newest Jacksonville Jaguar. Very good, man. Oh, that's for work. Okay, cool. Nice, man. Hopefully it's going well, and all groovy and smooth. And I have been to Florida before, but I was only in Orlando for a few days. Never been to Jacksonville, to Duval County. But the pick is in for the Houston Texans. This is the Texans' first pick in this draft. They traded out of the first round with the New York Giants, who traded up to get Jackson Dart. So Duval. But yeah, you're down there. Liam Cohen, the head coach of the Jaguars. He's a little bit odd, isn't he? I mean, good coach and all, but he's a little bit of an oddball. But Houston Texans pick is in. And who is this announcing it? I'm trying to think who that is. I don't recognize was he a kicker? Owen Daniels. Oh, wow. Yeah, he's lost a lot of weight too, hasn't he? Former tight end. So the Texans pick is in. Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins goes to the Houston Texans, and that is a really good pick. Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver out of Iowa State, someone who I'm going to have to update my list. Clearly, teams like my list too, because they're taking all the guys that I had on my list. But Jaden Higgins, wide receiver, goes to Houston Texans. This pick makes a lot of sense for a number of reasons. The rude people are transplants from New York. Talking about Florida. Jaden Higgins, this pick makes a lot of sense, though. They lose Stephon Diggs in free agency. Tank Dell is going to be out for the entire 2025 season. You have CJ Stroud on a rookie deal. They bring in Christian Kirk, I think. There's a trade, and the Seattle Seahawks have traded up. And I think that this pick is going to be, I'm guessing it's going to be Nick Emmanwori, the safety out of South Carolina. That is my prediction for this pick. I think, and remember, Seattle have 2 second-round picks, but the Seahawks have traded up. My guess is they go for Nick Emmanwori, because I think Mike McDonald there, he's going to want a safety in the vein of a Kyle Hamilton. The Seahawks got Gray Zabel in the first round. He's probably going to play either guard or center. Guy who I liked a lot for the Niners. I would have liked, if Gray Zabel was there in the mid-20 pick, I would have been okay with the Niners trading up to get him. But I think this pick could be Nick Emanwari because I think they're going to want to get that safety in the vein of the pick is also in for Seattle. So, I mean, it never really takes long when you trade up because you're trading up for a specific guy. But pick is in for Seattle. I'm going to say Nick Emanwari. Juke seems to think that it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, which that could happen. Look, they have Sam Darnold. They signed Sam Darnold, but for a 3-year deal. But however, the way that it was structured is that after this coming season, they can basically cut ties with Darnold. And Darnold, although he had a really good season, regular season for the Vikings last year, he's absolutely no sure thing. So the rude people had an hour. I'm an hour east of Orlando. Florida does not suck. When I was there, the humidity was a killer for me. I just wouldn't be able to do that. It was weird when I was in Orlando for a few days, like landing in the airport. It was like raining. There was all kinds of crazy lightning, but it was really, really warm and hot. And I just felt sweaty. And I don't know. It was just, also, they're making a good point here with wide receiver. I mean, they have JSN. They signed Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, we'll see what he can become. But we'll see how he'll do because he's been injured a lot. They signed DeMarcus Lawrence. Maybe wide receivers in play here. Maybe Luther Burden goes to Seattle. My guess, though, is Nick Emanwari, but we're going to have to wait and see. It's on commercial break, so you have to think that any moment now they'll come back and they'll announce the pick because the pick has been in for a while, and that means Cleveland has been on the clock. So already we're going to be getting backlogged, and it's all because of these stupid freaking commercials. So, but it looks like we are back in action here. Second round pick 35 overall. Let's see who the Seahawks go. They added Marquez Valdes-Scantling too. Interesting. So the pick is in. I am just so wow, that's a hefty enough price. So the Seahawks get the 35th overall pick. They give up 52 and 82. So Tennessee, and I think that's a good move for Tennessee. Look, you're moving down you're moving down 17 picks, but you still have your second round pick and you pick up an extra third for a team that has a lot of needs like the Tennessee Titans. I think that's a good move, but I'm not going to say that Seattle got, fleeced or anything. I think it's a good trade for both teams, but maybe the reason why it's taking so long is because there was a trade. The guy who was going to announce the Seattle picks was not ready to go or something like that. I'm from the West Coast. West Coast is nice. I mean, I lived in San Francisco for a long time, and I loved the. I like the San Francisco weather. It's not that hot, but it's for me, it's perfect because it's relatively dry, and it's usually in like the maybe high 60s, 70s, and I don't like weather that's in like the 90s or anything like that, or high 80s, 90s. That to me, that's too hot. But I'm Irish, so that's kind of why. I can't handle the heat. Oh my god, what is taking so freaking long with this? The pick has been in we're already backed up. This is ridiculous. Roger Goodell was talking about we need to speed up the draft. You know, we need just get the guy. The pick is in. Get the guy out there. Make the freaking pick already. What are we waiting for? Like they do this whole freaking song and dance, and it just takes forever. It's unbelievable. Not enough snow in San Francisco. Yeah, there as 408 says there's no snow. Can't even stand under a tree to cool off. I'm from South Bay. Yeah, San Jose. I like San Jose. Nice city, nice area. I have a couple of friends who live in the San Jose area, and yeah, it's super nice. Whenever I go down there, it's a little bit funny because whenever I do go down there, it's I'm usually going down there to party. So Richard Sherman is the one making the pick or announcing the pick, wearing those Seattle colors. So here we go. I'm thinking it's Nick Emanwari. We'll see what the pick is here. What the hell is going on with this? The Seattle Seahawks select Come on already. Freaking hell. Nick Emanwari. I called it. I called it. Nick Emanwari, the safety out of South Carolina. Elite measurables when you look at how he tested at the combine. Elite measurables. Nick Emanwari to the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to get my headphones so I can listen to the draft as well. So another guy that I'm going to have to take off. I'm going to have to take off the list as well. Okay. So Nick Emanwari goes to the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to have to hide this, and I'm going to have to take Emanwari off. He was on the... There we go. Good pick for the Seattle Seahawks. I like that pick a lot. If I'm Seattle, I'm pretty stoked on that. You know, they're going to need a safety in the vein of a Kyle Hamilton. You know, Mike Macdonald coming over, going to be his second year as head coach of the Seahawks, but coming over from the Baltimore Ravens. You know, you look at Tariq Woolen, you look at Devin Witherspoon. It's Witherspoon who they have at cornerback. Now you combine that with a guy like Nick Emanwari, and that's a really, really good secondary. And that's something that the Seahawks, I mean, you think back to like the Legion of Boom, but I think that's something that the Ravens have also been able to accomplish, you know, in Baltimore, and their defenses were so good under Mike Macdonald. So overall, I think it's a really, really good pick for the Seahawks. I hate to say it, but it is a good pick. So the next Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins goes to the Cleveland Browns. The running back out of Ohio State. So he stays in Ohio State. And that's, reminiscent. Well, Nick Chubb was a Georgia guy. But I think that's, Nick Chubb, his career, unfortunately, is essentially over just from that horrific injury that he had. But I think it's a solid pick for the Browns. I probably would wait on running back. They do have, who's the running back that they have now? But Quinshon, look, he's a good player. I'm not going to deny that. And the Browns, they have a pretty decent offensive line. So if you can help take pressure off the quarterback and moving forward, if you have a good running back, always going to be a good thing. But solid pick for the Browns, keeping Quinshon in Ohio. Juke says, I'm thinking Caleb Johnson or Trey Amos for 49ers. So Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa, Trey Amos, the CB out of Ole Miss. I could see Ole Miss for sure. I could see Trey Amos. You think with the 49ers, you have Diamador Lenore and you have Green. So that's one of those things where you do need that third cornerback. We have Renardo Green and you have Diamador Lenore. So getting a guy like Trey Amos, if you have those three cornerbacks, those are the guys who are going to be starting. Those are the guys who are going to be playing the vast majority of the snaps. And I like them. I'm more of a I like some of the guys later too. I like Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State. I like Kobe Bryant out of Kansas. But if they went Trey Amos, I would not be. I'd be happy. So the 49ers are coming up. So there's the Raiders. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks away for San Francisco. On my list here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 guys on my list. So at least the guys on my list, we should be able to get at least one of them. But there we go. So Quinshon Judkins, on that really good Ohio State, him and TreVeyon Henderson, those two Ohio State running backs. But I think it's a good move for the Browns. Losing a guy like like Nick Chubb is just, he was such a good player, relatively short amount of time, that horrific injury, unfortunately. One of those things. Noah Williams, from out of Cal. Yes. Guy, he's definitely one of the, well, Noah Williams seems to be one of those guys where he's like right place at the right time kind of guy, where he just, how many interceptions did he have in his time at Cal? Or, I feel like he had a bunch of interceptions, but which is a good thing. And that's something that did the Dolphins trade up? The Dolphins did trade up. Yeah, the Dolphins traded up with the Raiders to and let's see who they want to take. I have no idea where Miami's going. No clue at all. I think probably offensive line, maybe Arion Tersary, who was talked about earlier, but we'll see. But yeah, Noel Williams seems like a right place, right guy. And for a team like the Niners, where we struggled so much with getting turnovers towards the end of last season, that could be helpful. I want them to draft OL or DL. Says 408. I agree, man. I think that with who should be available at our pick, I would probably go defensive tackle. As of right now, Darius Alexander, TJ Sanders are both available. So the Raiders move back 11 picks in the second round. They get a third and a fourth, but then they also give up their fifth. So I think this is a good trade for the Raiders. Again, a team that has a lot of needs, rebuilding a whole new thing here under Pete Carroll. So getting more picks, never a bad thing for a rebuilding team like the Raiders. And you only move down 11 spots. There's still going to be really good players, but they're about to announce the pick for the Miami Dolphins. Alec Ingold. Oh, Javona Savaianaya out of Arizona. So the Dolphins going offensive lineman in the second round. So they went Kenneth Grant in the first round. You go Jonas Savaianaya in the second round. Good pick, I think, for them. He's going to play guard. He played tackle at Arizona. I think he's going to kick in and play guard for the Miami Dolphins. Maybe they do keep him at tackle, although last year they drafted Patrick Paul. So maybe they think that Patrick Paul will be the successor to a guy like Teron Armstead, who retired this offseason, but rebuilding for the Raiders. Yeah, I mean, that is true. The Raiders, man. I see. Here's the thing: calling them a joke of a team is an insult to jokes. The Raiders have just been. I mean, they've just been a nightmare for like 20 years. I do think that Pete Carroll is a good hire for them. You have Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, which I think oddly could work really well. But you have Pete Carroll as the head coach. He knows he's a competent head coach. He's not like your, Antonio Pierce, who I think maybe got a bit of a raw deal there, but he's not Antonio Pierce. He's not Josh McDaniels, John Gruden, with who was a good coach, but obviously had some interesting things to say about some people. But I think that's a good move for the Raiders getting Pete Carroll. You get a quarterback like Geno Smith, he's competent. He's not going to be winning you Super Bowls or anything, but I think he's at least competent. So I think they're going to be a better team, but they're in a tough division like that. Of course, you have the Chiefs, the Chargers, with Jim Harbaugh, and they're going to be good. And then you have the Broncos, who are going to be really good, I think. But sorry, Shifty Cruz, screw them both, Pete. Look, I'm not a fan. I don't like the Raiders at all. But look, I think that they're making better moves than they've made in the last probably 20 years. So I'll give credit where it's due for good moves. Chip Kelly has really evolved as a play designer over the last few years. Yeah, I mean, he was there at Ohio State. So could you see maybe a couple of Ohio State guys? They went. Wait, who did they go in the first? Well, they got Ashton Jeanty, didn't they? In round one, didn't they go? Was it Jeanty? Yeah, they went Jeanty. So, for a second there, I was thinking that maybe they would go Travion Henderson of Ohio State, but they got Jeanty. So, Sorry, Chip was a garbage coach, especially when he was for us. Yeah, I mean, look, Chip Kelly was really bad with the 49ers. That team was also really, really bad. I think we went, was it 2-14 that season? And that led us to then getting Solomon Thomas. But here, the one positive that Chip Kelly was so bad that we fired him after 1 year and we got Kyle Shanahan in. And I know that, look, Kyle Shanahan's far from the perfect head coach, but when you consider from then we've been to 2 Super Bowls and four NFC Championship games. So yeah, he seems a bit cocky. I think look as an offensive coordinator, and here's the thing. See, I think if you had like a first time head coach, like a young guy who's your head coach, and if Chip Kelly was your offensive coordinator, I'd be worried about that. But I think having like Pete Carroll is going to shut. I mean, if Chip Kelly starts acting up or starts whatever, like Pete Carroll's not going to hesitate to be like, no, I'm running the show here. I think he'd shut that down real quick. By the way, what do you guys think? This is the same outfit that I'm wearing in the thumbnail, but what do you guys think about my blazer? I tried to look a little more professional, maybe. So the Patriots are on the clock. The Patriots took Will Campbell in the first round. The Patriots, outside of quarterback, because they have Drake May, they can basically go with any position. So I think all options are open. Would a guy like I think a coach like who's their coach? God, what's his name? I can see his face. I agree. I don't like the guy in his previous time in the NFL is terrible. But if you watch the offense, yeah. Who's the coach? Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, Mike Vrabel. That I think they're going to probably go high character guy, and just like loves the game of football. And I know that's like the most generic cliche thing that anyone can say, but I think they're going to go with they're going to build it up from the beginning. Maybe a Travion Henderson. I mean, that's what they're talking about on NFL Network. That's a possibility, but I'm curious to see what the Patriots do because they have just needs everywhere. Do you maybe go like a Jalen Noel or Luther Burden? Because look, you signed Stephon Diggs coming off an injury, but you got to put Drake May in good situations. You got to give him weapons to work with. That could also mean running back, or maybe it's another offensive lineman. So, or do you build like they could literally go everywhere? They have needs all over the place. So they're coming out to make the selection. So after this pick, you have the Bears, the Saints, the Bears, Jets, and then 49ers. So they're about to make the pick. They're just introducing the people who will be announcing the pick. It's people who do work for the Special Olympics, which holds a special place in my heart. So that's really good. But yeah, I agree. I don't like, I'm not a big Chip Kelly guy, but as a coach, I mean, he clearly did a pretty good job. And Ohio State's been the amount of Ohio, like Ibuka, you saw Quinshon Judkins go. You're going to see Travion Henderson go pretty soon. You look at Jeremiah Smith, like he helped that offense go. All right, let's see. Travion Henderson, the running back out of Ohio State. Wow. So the Patriots are going to help out Drake May by getting him a legitimate running back. They do have Ramondre Stevenson, who is, I think, a solid guy, but you want to have Travion as a game breaker. He is super elite fast, home run hit, and that's what they're saying right here. Good pass protection too, which I think for a fundamentals guy like Mike Vrabel is going to be so key. But he is the kind of guy where if he hits the hole in the blocking and just bam, he is gone. Decent catcher of the ball too, so he gives Drake May not only a weapon in the backfield, but also he can go out on routes, really solid hands. They make the comp to Clinton Portis. I think that's a pretty good one. But I think you love to see a running back who's not afraid to hit in terms of pass protection. And that's exactly him. I think it's a good move for the Patriots. They need more dynamic players on that team. They have a lot of guys who are just, you look at, I like Kendrick Bourne, but, he's like a number 3, number 4 wide receiver. They bring in Stephon Diggs, who can be a game changer, but he's getting older. He's coming off a big injury. We'll see how he does. But if you get a game changer like a guy, and they get one here, where if he can hit the hole, bam, he could be gone. And that can just, as the title suggests, that can just change the game instantly. So I think it's a good pick for the Patriots. And you're seeing a resurgence in the value of running backs, I think. Seeing what Saquon Barkley did in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, you see what Christian McCaffrey did the year before. They're seeing just how much of an impact a good running back. I think that there was and there still is a certain degree of thought process where it's like wait till like the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round to get your running backs. But they realize if you have a damn good running back, that can really make things a lot easier, especially for a young quarterback like a Drake May. TreVeyon Henderson. So the 2 Ohio State running backs go pretty early, a little bit surprised. So now the Bears are going to have not back-to-back picks, but they're going to have a pick. It's going to go Bears, then it's going to go Saints, and then it's going to go Bears. And I think this is from the Carolina Panthers. So they're still getting picks from that freaking trade. Oh, my God. Bears are still, they haven't made their pick yet, and it's less than 2 minutes. Is there a possibility that teams are maybe – Ryan Poles is not on the – now he's on the phone. So Ryan Poles, the GM of the Bears, is either calling the player that they're picking, or is there maybe working out a trade? We'll have to wait and see. Do I need to update the banner here? I don't think I do. I don't think I need the last. Yeah, none of the last 3 guys selected were on my list. So there's definitely going to be a couple of players on my top prospects here that I think the 49ers could get. But I'm very curious to see what the Niners are going to do in the second round. I'm leaning Darius Alexander or TJ Sanders if they're there. But so the clock on the Bears, it's down to 1 minute left. So yeah, they are taking their time here. I wonder if they're really working the phones here to try and move back, or maybe are they working out a trade that's going to be with a player involved? Who knows? Pick is in for the Bears. So the Bears could still maybe work out a trade for their pick. They have another pick coming up very soon. So we'll have to wait and see. Are the Bears a team? Would they take a chance on a Mike Green? They took Colston Loveland in the first round. I think that offense, they spent a lot of capital and free agency on building the offensive line. They kind of have their offense set. Will they take a risk maybe on a Will Johnson or a Mike Green? That's a possibility. I'll be curious to see. You have they seem pretty fired up there, but I think maybe they want to have a guy across from Montez Sweat. So very curious to see what the Chicago Bears are going to do here. And look, again, they're going to be busy because they have this pick, then it's the Saints, and then it's the Bears again. So you see people all there drinking beer, a lot of Packers fans, obviously. Yeah, of course. It's this. Look, the draft is in Green Bay, so they are booing them. But let's see if the who is this? He's shouting out "Bear down." There we go, pumping it up. There you go. I like it. Here's the selection. Des White. Oh, they get Luther Burden. So Luther Burden, a good call on this, Ben. They go Luther Burden the third. So, man, they are giving Caleb Williams some weapons in Chicago. And I think maybe that's the plan in Chicago is that you want to put Caleb Williams in the best possible situation. They have Roma Dunze, they have DJ Moore, now they have Luther Burden, they have Cole Komet, Colston Loveland. They spent big money, big capital getting fixing the offensive line. If Caleb Williams doesn't succeed here, he is never going to succeed. And you have Ben Johnson calling the plays. I do think what you'll see from the Bears moving forward is probably maybe a bit more focus when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, but they're basically just saying, look, we're going to find out real quick. And I think Caleb Williams is looks like a decent quarterback. Still very early to say, of course, but man, you are giving him every single possibility to succeed. And when you talk about like they're picking in a couple of picks, could they go running back? Could they go, let's say, like a Caleb Johnson out of Iowa? There's a lot of different ways they could go there, and they could be like, look, we've given you everything, so go out there and win us games. But Des White was the former Bear, announcing the pick, and he goes, the 2025 NFC North champion Bears. I don't know. That just seems like a weirdly bad omen. I don't think you want to do that. Yeah, look at the weapons that Caleb Williams is going to have. That is amazing. So the New Orleans Saints are up. Then it's the Bears again. Then it's the Jets. And then it's the 49ers. The New Orleans Saints, they were linked. Well, they were thought to be a team that could get Shedeur Sanders in the first round. He's here later. We'll see. Could Shedeur Sanders go here? That's what I'm kind of questioning as well, Ben. I mean, maybe at like 9, they were thinking we're not comfortable with Shedeur at 9, but could they go with him here? I mean, David Carr or Derek Carr, sorry. I always mix them up. Similar names, obviously, and brothers. But Derek Carr, his 2025 season is in doubt. You have Spencer Rattler. I mean, so I could see it. I could see it. I think that they should go Shedeur just because I think that they should go Shedeur here because he's a second round pick. It's not going to be like, the financial investment isn't a big one. It's not like if he struggles, it's not like next year or the year after. You could just, if you have a top 5 pick, you could easily go with another quarterback. But yeah, I think that they probably should go that way. But that's if they just say, like, we just don't like the prospect. A second round pick, especially pick 40, that is now I'm kind of talking myself out of it because that's still a very valuable pick. So if you're not crazy about him, I think you leave it off then. But let's see if I don't know. I don't know what the pick is going to be here. Kellen Moore, the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints, could they go with like a weapon for whatever quarterback they have? They could go in. I mean, defensively, they're a mess. They can go in so many different directions. So we'll have to wait and see. I could see Shedeur though. Like it makes sense. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen because I think if the Saints wanted Shedeur, they probably would have traded up to like 33, pick 33, 34 to just, if they are like, okay, he's not our guy at 9, but we still really do want him, they would have kind of made sure of that, and they didn't. So I'm going to say if they go like Tyler Shuck or something that are Will Howard, that would be a little funny. But so Ryan Ramczyk, who recently retired, offensive tackle. All right, here we go. New Orleans Saints. Tyler Shuck. Ben, You're laughing right now. You're laughing right now. It's Tyler Shuck out of Louisville. Tyler Shuck, former quarterback at I believe it was Ohio State, then goes to Louisville, plays well, has had some injury issues. Wow. What is Shedeur Sanders thinking right now? I am glad, and I know that Shedeur has a bit of an ego, well, more than a bit of an ego, but I am glad that they're not just showing him in his, room, which is like legendary. But like, I'm glad that they're not showing him. I just don't like when they would do that. I know maybe like a quick shot of like Dion and Shedeur, but do you know, like, remember like back like Aaron Rodgers or Brady Quinn, and I just didn't like it when they kept showing him. Like, did it make for good TV? Yeah, I guess, but was it? It seemed kind of mean, Um, but wow, Tyler Shuck, I did not see that happening at all. 25 years old as well. He's not young, so wow. Wow, wow, wow. I did not see that coming at all. That's crazy. That is wild. Let me bring up yeah, so let's go with the draft cast. So the Buffalo Bills have traded up with Chicago. So Chicago, so the Bills trade up, and the Bills would have moved up a lot. The Bills would have moved up maybe like 20 picks here. So I'm really curious to see what Chicago got in this trade. Could it be? They went Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky. In the first round, they brought back Tre'Davious White. They have some other. Um, but I think they're gonna maybe. Do they want to try and replace? I think they could go Donovan Ezeraku. I think Donovan Ezeraku is the guy. They got Joey Bosa in, who we've kind of forgotten about. But I think they could go Donovan Ezeraku, edge player, just so they can get after all those really good quarterbacks in in uh in the AFC. But let me just bring it back here. I just don't want to any. Sometimes there can be a spoiler when ESPN or like the thing can be ahead of the announcement. So, but the Bills do trade with the Chicago Bears. They move up to this pick here. I'm not kind of surprised about it, but well, let me see. Where did they move up? Wait, so the Bills, oh, the Bills had two. The Bills had 2 second round picks. Oh, was that from the Stephon Diggs trade? Was that Stephon Diggs? Tyler Shuck, though. What in the world is that about? Oh, they just showed the freaking trade details and I missed it. ESPN was wrong, as always. Wow. I'll be okay. Yeah. What the Bills could go wide receiver too. Maybe Jalen Knoll. Because you look at the wide receiver, they went Keon Coleman last year. They have Khalil Shakir. They have good tight ends in Kincaid and in Knox. But I think maybe wide receiver could. Maybe they want to give the Bills want to give Josh Allen like a home run hitter, and Jalen Knoll is that guy. Really great. You look at his testing at the combine was through the roof. Had good production at Iowa State as well. The last number of picks have just been. Oh, I have to take Luther Burden off of my list. Actually, the Sanders are hype machines, bro. The team see through it. I mean, I've watching Shedeur. I don't think he's. I think he's worth a second round pick for a team that needs a quarterback. I think sometimes, yeah, when there's a trade that that the so they signed Larry Ogunjobi, Joey Bosa. I want to see what the trade details are. Okay, so Chicago gets both of their second round picks, but maybe they give up like a but the Bills get their third. Okay. That's still a lot to give up. Oof. I don't know about that. I don't know about that trade for Buffalo, but we'll see who the pick is. Maybe I don't know if I don't at some point Mike Green's got to go. At some point Will Johnson's got to go, but clearly a lot of concerns about that. Von Miller is a free agent. Do they want to go in Ezeraku to replace him? I think Ezeraku is more just like your straight up just get after the quarterback guy. Let's see. He played below average teams to pad his stats, but whenever he had a formidable opponent, he failed. You can see that. Yeah, I don't totally disagree with you, but I also think that Colorado offensive line was absolutely awful. Like the amount of times when I did watch Shador, like the ball would be snapped and then almost instantly he's under pressure. But I think he's worth a second round pick. If you're a quarterback needy team, like if you're the Jets next, they signed Justin Fields to a couple, like maybe you go Shador there. Here is the pick for the Bills, though. Remember, the Bills traded up. They gave up their two later second round picks. I can't remember. They got back a third, but let's see. Lee Evans, I remember him. Good wide receiver. Select. TJ Sanders. Damn it. Damn it. They go TJ Sanders, and that's someone who, and I think they knew that. I think they knew that the 49ers would be interested. So they go TJ Sanders. I really do think that they knew that's why they traded up. That's why. Yeah, jump in front of us. Yeah. That's exactly why they went TJ Sanders. It makes sense. They gave up a lot, though. I want to see the trade details of that again. Let me just look it up on my phone. But that makes sense. I have to freaking search for it, huh? Tyler Shuck, though, unbelievable. Let's see. So the Bills trade 56, 62, and 109. So they're 2 seconds and a fourth for the 41 overall pick, a third round pick, a seventh. Ugh, I don't like that trade for Buffalo. I like the player that they got, but I don't like that trade. Damn Bills. TJ Sanders would have been a great fit for San Francisco. My guy, I think number one, who do I have on my list here? Oh, I got to bring that banner back up. So I do like Donovan Ezeraku. Defensive tackle is a bigger need, but I do like Ezeraku a lot. But I would go. I'm kind of almost leaning a little bit more towards Darius Alexander at the pick. Now we still have a few more picks to go. So, well, there's actually one pick, and then it's the 49ers. So there's the New York Jets. So the Jets in the first round, they went with Armand Membu. I could see them looking to improve the defensive line as well. They have, of course, they have Quinn Williams, but I could see them potentially going defensive line. The Jets pick is in. So San Francisco is officially on the clock. The Jets pick is in, though. So the Jets go Armand Membu. The Jets quietly have, I think, a very young, good offensive line. So if you're the Jets, I think you're stoked about that. I think the Jets could go wide receiver here. They have Garrett Wilson. They have Alan Lazard, Devontae Adams gone. Maybe do they bring in Jalen Knoll? Do they try and, or you could go tight end. Maybe you go Elijah Arroyo. Maybe you go Mason Taylor. I think the Jets can maybe go that direction. They don't really have much of anything at tight end, so that's an option, and that could help out Justin Fields as well. Not another defensive end. I'll be pissed. OL or DL. See, I hear you. Just remember that there are a lot of good defensive tackles available later. So we look at, I mean, I would happily take Darius Alexander. You got Omar Norman Lott, Alfred Collins. You got, I love Jamari Caldwell, CJ West out of Indiana, Aeneas Peebles, Ty Robinson, the athletic guy out of Nebraska. So there's options, but I do think that if you are San Francisco, you want to get, um, I do think, that I think you want to go Darius Alexander. I think, assuming he doesn't go here to the Jets, I think you go Darius Alexander. Now, Jed just said, so many choices. Wonder what we are going to do here. Hashtag trenches. I'm just going to look that up. Not that I don't believe you, Ben, but I just want to look that up. My typing is so awful. Jed York. He did say that. I think it's going to be Shamar Turner, Texas A&M. Would wouldn't be my I when I saw him, I wasn't blown away. Could I see it happening? Sure, but I wasn't blown away. Let's see what the Jets do here. Yeah, I just wasn't a look. I'm no expert on. I'm not like a draft expert. I just wasn't crazy about what I saw from Shamar Turner when I was looking at Texas A&M. Just that's just me though. I would go Darius Alexander if he is going to be available. Right. Jets pick is in. So what's taking them so long? What's taking them like the pick has been in for a while. Get the guy out there, announce the pick already. 49ers on the clock. So I mean that Jed York tweet trenches. So I think that means you're looking at either I think you're looking at either Darius Alexander, Donovan Ezeraku, Shamar Turner, I think is there. I also think maybe the offensive line, maybe it's Ariante Ursary. We'll see. So here come the Jets. John Abraham doing a little dance, and look at that suit that John Abraham has on. Holy, looks like a snakeskin suit or something. Mason Taylor. I mentioned Mason Taylor as an option for the Jets. Get Justin Fields a tight end. So I mentioned Mason Taylor could be an option for the Jets, and they go with Mason Taylor, the very talented tight end out of LSU. I agree with the comp here that Daniel Jeremiah, Zach Ertz. I think that's a fairly good one. Not only that, I think that you look at, he's just really polished, athletic. He's going to be a good weapon. He's going to be a good weapon for Justin Fields and the Jets. They have Garrett Wilson. They have Alan Lazard. So they have some receivers. They have Brees Hall, Braylon Allen. So in terms of the running back and wide receivers, they're pretty good there. But it's a good pick, I think. I like the Mason Taylor pick for the Jets. The competition worries you. I get that. But also just think, too, that, you had Quinyon Mitchell went first round pick of the Eagles. He was at Toledo, wasn't he, last year? I get the competition argument, but also if you're good, you're good. The pick is in for San Francisco, so there will be no trade. The pick is in for San Francisco. It will be Julian Peterson announcing it. Now, if it's me, also Mason Taylor, yes, the son of Jason Taylor. So Jason and Mason. I want Darius Alexander. I would be happy with Donovan Ezeraku. Julian Peterson, look at that jacket. Yeah, former first round pick Julian Peterson. Bay Area, let's go. Bang, bang, 49er gang. Let's see. Here we go. Alfred Collins, defensive tackle out of Texas. So the 49ers go Alfred Collins, the defensive tackle out of Texas. A little bit early. A little bit early, but he is someone who the 49ers need. He's a big, big dude. You want to stop the run? Alfred Collins is the guy. You want someone who comes through in the big moments? Alfred Collins is the guy. So I'm okay with this. I'm okay with the pick. Again, a little bit early, but I'm okay with this. So I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this pick. Alfred Collins is nice. Yeah, I think he's a good. He had, you look at it, 7 sacks in his career, 17.5 tackles for loss, a big dude in the middle of the defensive line, and we needed we needed a defensive tackle. If let's say if we took him, if we got him at 75, I would have been over the moon. Getting him at 43, I think that's absolutely okay. We definitely were after TJ and we got I think you're right about that, Jude. I think that maybe we like if TJ Sanders was there, that could have been an option. It could be a thing too, but I think Alfred Collins is a really solid pick. I like the pick. It's and this is going to be one of those drafts where it's going to be a little bit, it's not going to be a sexy draft. We kind of said that before. I think it's going to be a lot of the trenches, but I'm absolutely 100% okay with this pick. And I think it's going to look, we have, there's no question about it in my mind. We have the worst defensive tackle room in the NFL, but I think this is a good pick for San Francisco. You get Alfred Collins, you help to build that up. Um, Another stupid pick. Yep, that's C minus. Never pick the best players. Um, yeah, would I would have gone maybe Darius. I just liked what Darius Alexander offered a little bit more, but I'm not going to complain about this. Building the trenches is never a bad thing. Alfred Collins is one of those guys. If you look at John Chapman from 49ers Rush podcast, he's a Texas Longhorns fan, so maybe it's a little bit um, so maybe it's a little bit he's a little bit biased, but I know he's talked up Alfred Collins a lot. I think this is a really good pick. I gotta check Twitter because I bet John Chapman is going crazy. I gotta see what John Chapman. But yep, I like this move. You got to get the trenches. And like the 49ers defensive line was a disaster. Alfred Collins is the only defense pretty much. John Chapman. I know John's super busy doing his event, but yeah, he's happy. He's happy. He's really happy. I think this is a good move though for San Francisco. You got to build the defensive line, and I wouldn't be surprised if we doubled. But here's the thing too, because he's kind of a 3 down guy as well. He's a big guy, but he's also a 3 down guy. So I think this is just a really good move overall for San Francisco. I probably would have gone if I'm not gonna lie. I probably would have gone with a guy like Darius Alexander, but wow, good move. Big dude, 6'6", 332. Someone that we needed. Look, I'm not gonna. I would have preferred a TJ Sanders. Probably would have preferred a Darius Alexander. But do I hate this pick? Absolutely not. I think it's one that's we needed it. The Niners obviously felt pretty good about it. My guess is though that they probably wanted TJ Sanders. But you think about it, I believe so far in this draft, we've added 2 day 1 starters. And you look at the compared to let's say 24 hours ago before the Niners made our first pick in the first round, the starting out defensive line would have been Bosa, Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, and Yetur Gross Matos. Now it's going to be as of now, Bosa, probably Jordan Elliott, Alfred Collins, and Michael Williams. So the defensive line, I think, already is massively improved. Um, Love it. Our GM sucks and coaches. Another crappy year. Ah, come on, man. I mean, defensive line was by far the biggest need that we had, and we got 2 players who I think are pretty good. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, I think that, Collins is one of those guys where immediately Evan Anderson too. No, you're hey, look, you're absolutely well within your right, man, to be honest, if you're not super like, we all have our preferences on who we'd like to take, so Cowboys get Donovan Ezaraku. Fuck me, huh? Sorry for swearing. So, I gotta update, my banner now because we're gonna be looking more at, the, pick 75. They should have got at least offensive lineman. I mean, I think that maybe yeah. I mean, maybe a guy like Ariante Ursuri. There are guys. There's still plenty of guys available. Um, you look at Ursuri. You look at I like Ozzy Trapillo, Anthony Belton. He's just like a nasty guy on off at the offensive tackle position. Tate Ratledge inside. Wyatt Milam. Like him, Jackson Slater. That's probably a day three pick. Jared Wilson, the center out of Georgia. I like Jake Majors later on, but I'm curious to see now where the 49ers go next. Poor Brock will be running for his life. Yeah, look, I agree that we could definitely upgrade at center. That's for sure. We need a linebacker now. Maybe a Chris Paul Jr. We got two more picks tonight. Absolutely, Jude. We got two more picks. So let me. Siobhan Ravel is still there too, coming off an injury, but super talented guy. I I like the Alfred Collins pick, and I think it's going to grow on you guys. Well, I think it might grow on you a bit more. Like the more that you see him play, he comes through with big plays and big moments. But really happy. I'm happy with Alfred Collins. I would have, it would have been ideal. I think if TJ Sanders fell. I'm not gonna and Ezeraku to the Cowboys kind of hurts because I liked Ezeraku a lot, but it is what it is. So the Colts are on the clock now. They got their guy Tyler Warren in the first round. Let's see where they go here. Jonathan Taylor went to Wisconsin, right? Let's see who the Colts take. Seriously, Kyle's an offense. So why doesn't he get that's I don't disagree with you, my man. See who the Colts take. JT Tuimolo. I really like JT Tuimolo. That's a really good pick. And I think he kind of went under the radar a little bit. Like he JT Tuimoloau is going to be a guy. Think well, I really like JT. When we got like, let's say if in the first round, if we went Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant or Derek Harmon, JT Tuimoloau actually would have been my target here at edge in the second round. He's a guy, I think he's going to be in the NFL for 10, 15 years. Think of him somewhere between like a Brandon Graham, Sam Hubbard. He's that guy who's just going to, you plug him in at right defensive end, and for 10 years, you don't have to worry about that position at all. I think that's a really good pick for the Colts. They got Leatu Latu, um, and they have DeForest Buckner, so they're really building that defensive line. I like it. Shanahan can't do a shift. You can't go without a third round. I'm going Caleb Johnson. Yeah, I think that will probably end up going. I do think this is a really good pick though. For the pick is in. This is the Rams' first pick. Remember, the Rams moved down out of the first round. They did get a future first round pick, and that was from the Atlanta Falcons. Pick is in for the Rams. I'm going to be back momentarily, guys. Just got to use the restroom. Alrighty, pick is in for the Rams. Let's see. You guys like this pick? Are we talking about Alfred Collins still? If we're talking Alfred Collins, yeah, look, I think it's a good pick. Is it a great pick? Is it a home run? Maybe not, but it's a necessary pick. I do think that when TJ Sanders, when the Bills moved up to get TJ Sanders, that was probably the 49ers guy. Of course, they're not going to say that, but I think that was probably their guy. Maybe just the age of Darius Alexander kind of threw them off a little bit. Maybe they just weren't crazy about 25-year-old guy. How old is Alfred Collins, actually? Let's see. Let's see. How old is Alfred Collins? He is bio. Doesn't say how old he is. Let's see. Alfred Collins, Texas. So he is 20. Well, he's going to be 24. He's going to be 24 during the season. So it's definitely not definitely nothing to do with the age. That's definitely not a thing. He's 23, but he'll be 24 in October. So Darius Alexander will be 25 come the start of the season. So it's not like a massive difference. So Rams. Could the Rams go Shedeur Sanders? That's a possibility. It's going to be now a little while before the Niners are back on the clock, but that guy is freaking fat. The Rams select Terrence Ferguson, the tight end out of Oregon. A little bit early for Terrence Ferguson. A little bit early for Terrence Ferguson. Not saying it's a bad pick by the Rams, but a little bit early. I thought like Elijah Arroyo maybe would have been up there, potentially a guy like Gunnar Helm, but they go the tight end Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. So I'm going to add to my scrolling banner of players that I would like in the third round. Thomas. I mean, Darius Allen, some of these guys are, who knows, they can make it. I do think that Mike Green, although as a player, you'd love to have him, but I just think he's off the draft board completely. Let me see. Ooh, I like Femi Oladejo. I like Femi Oladejo. Go. How do you spell this guy's name? Air. Ante Ursere. Jared Wilson. So I've added a few guys to my kind of scrolling ticker. Stu Naylor, what's going on? What's going on, Stu? How we doing, buddy? NFL draft season, gotta love it. Pick is in for the Cardinals at pick 47. I bet you they go Darius Alexander. The Cardinals go Will Johnson. So the Cardinals go Will Johnson. Clearly there's a concern with injuries. This is a guy who is a top 15 talent, fell all the way to the middle of the second round. Um, it's a good pick if he can stay healthy for sure, but that's an if. He hasn't worked out much at all. He's missed time, so if he stays healthy, great pick for the Cardinals. If not, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see just how he performs, but he needs to stay healthy. That's number one. We don't need a tight end. We already signed one in the offseason. That's true. Yeah, we signed Luke Farrell. So we have George Kittle and Luke Farrell. I could see the Niners going tight end, maybe not to like round 5 or round 7, but I could see the Niners going tight end. But it's, unless it was like Tyler Warren or Colson Loveland falling to like 43 or 75, I wouldn't really have much interest in the tight ends this early. But super athletic guy, um, Terrence Ferguson. So it's a solid pick for the Rams. Maybe a bit like Alfred Collins, a little bit early, but okay, liking the def. Yeah, and look, I think we're going to keep it going with the D. If you look offensively, you know, um, in terms of like starters, I mean, you'd love to get a starting center. Like you would have loved to have got like Drew Dalman or someone in free agency, but even like picking, let's say if we go Jared Wilson, the center out of Georgia, and he only started 1 year at Georgia. Is he going to come in and be the center for the 49ers in his rookie year? Probably not. Um, I think the Niners offense is still good enough with McCaffrey back healthy in order to put up more than enough points for us to win a lot of games. It's just the defense needs to be a lot better. So, would I be shocked if we went defense again today? No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. We have a horrible offensive line. Yeah, it's not great by any means. I think getting Trent Williams back. You love Trent Williams. I think Dominic Pooney is going to be even better in his second year. At left guard, whether it's Burford or who was the guy who came in who got we signed him, Ben Barch. I think he's okay um, at left guard, and then McKivitz, not a great right tackle, but we could do worse. I'll just say that we could do a lot worse. How's life in Ireland? It's good, man. It's good. It's ups and downs, and just how things go. Um, yeah, just it's how things go, my man. There's good and bad, and just you know. But I'm happy to be here. Happy to be doing this, joined by some some good people. Watching the draft. It's one of my the day 2 of the draft is probably my favorite. Definitely my favorite draft day, but also one of my favorite days in the football calendar, outside of like obviously regular season and all that. But um, hoping for a John Felici. That could happen. I know he retired, but it's possible he could and I think he mentioned that too, that he could potentially come back. Like if there's struggles, you know, I mean, we know that Jake Brendel's not the best center in the world. That maybe that's an option they explore. So that's a good point too. What made me move? Just to be closer, my family is all over here, and so so quick recap for my life in a nutshell, if you will, is that I was born in San Francisco. I was there till I was 7, and then from 7 till I was 21, I was here in Ireland, and then from 21, then for about 13 years or so, I lived in San Francisco again, and then I moved back here a couple of years ago. But mostly just to be close to friends and family that I kind of grew up with, and uh, still have a lot of love for the Bay Area, but my time was kind of done there. I was just happy to be here. Would I completely, I just happy to be in Ireland. So I just put some food on. So I'm gonna go grab my food, bring it in, and we're gonna eat and watch the draft. I'm hungry. It is 1:21 in the morning here, but I haven't had food in hours, so I'm starving. I'll be right back. Alrighty, we are back. I think Pooney will get way better. Another big body in the O line will be good. I agree, and I wouldn't. I like. There's a number of like the mid round prospects at on the offensive line that I like. If we can get Ariante Ursary, then that'd be awesome. Jared Wilson is a guy I like in the third round. Anthony Belton maybe in the fourth round. Nasty offensive tackle. North Carolina, plays with an attitude. I like him. And then I also like Jackson Slater. Logan Brown from Kansas is a guy who has some potential. Jake Majors as like a later round center, maybe fifth round, could be an option too. But yeah, Pooney, I think Pooney will be a lot better. Could he potentially, maybe look, there's Tate Ratledge is out there. Maybe could you move Pooney to left guard? You have Ratledge who played strictly right guard. So the Texans are on the clock again after taking Jaden Higgins earlier. So the Texans get Ariante Ursary. Good pick. They need help on the offensive line. So Ariante Ursary, the offensive tackle out of Minnesota, goes to the Houston Texans, and I love their draft so far. I like their draft a lot. Jaden Higgins and Ariante Ursary. That's pretty darn good so far. Well traveled, yeah, somewhat well traveled. I've been to a number of countries in Europe. I've been around the U.S. a bit. So yeah, I like to think I'm somewhat. I've got some miles, some air miles. Good pick though, Ariante Ursary for the Texans, whose offensive line. Remember, they traded away Laramie Tunsil, who, at his peak, Laramie Tunsil was really, really good. But will he still be there? Well, he went to the Commanders. So the Bengals are on the clock. The Bengals went Shamar Stewart in the first round. Bengals never not. That's a good pick. Yeah, protecting Stroud is a nice pick. I would have liked Ursary on the 49ers. If we picked him at 43, I would have been okay with it. Yeah, I think that they need to protect Stroud. That offensive line for the Texans is a mess. But that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, I mean, the Texans have a lot of good players on defense. They added Azeez Al-Shire, right? They have Azeez, on defense. The pass rusher they got. Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie, Jimmy Ward, who I still like a lot. Good player. Will Anderson. That's Will Anderson. So the Texans, they have a lot of good players in defense. They just need to protect CJ Stroud at all costs. Ooh. Bengals select Demetrius Knight Jr., linebacker out of South Carolina, hyper athletic guy. He is physical. That's kind of what they're saying. Completely agree. And he is a leader for sure. I thought that this is a little bit early. There's linebackers that I would prefer ahead of Demetrius Knight, but like Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss, I like, but not a bad pick. And Chris Paul is actually someone that I need to add to my scrolling list. All right. So still look at all these players who are still available. Holy moly. Now it's going to be a while before the Niners are up. It's about 25 picks until the Niners are up again. I have a feeling that most of the guys that I have on my scrolling list down here, that most of them are going to be gone. But we'll see. Who else? Let me see who else is available. And feel free to throw out some. I mean, Jack Beck, wide receiver. Oh yeah, I gotta add. Let me add. Femi Oladejo. Let's pick is in. So Seattle's pick is coming in as well. They've had a good draft so far, I think. Seattle, unfortunately. So I added a couple of more names to the list down here. Darius Alexander, Trey Amos, Jalen Noel, Azariah Thomas, Jared Wilson, Chris Paul Jr., Olufemi Oladejo, and Omar Norman Lott. The one thing with Norman Lott, I like him as a player, and like he grades out really well by like the advanced analysis, but he just doesn't play that many snaps. And was that like a Tennessee thing? Was that like his like injury concerns or something like that? Hard to say. Oh yeah, actually, there's a lot of players I want to actually add to this list. There's so many good ones. It was yeah. Tate Ratledge, I like a lot. I mean, we've added a number of safeties, but maybe like yeah, Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, like Xavier too. So Seattle's on the clock. So Seattle so far have taken Gray Zabel, and then they trade up and got Nick Emanwari. So I think they're having a really, unfortunately, I think the Seahawks are having a really good draft so far. Who could they go here? Who could they go with here? Maybe Jalen Noel. If they went Jalen Noel, I'll be so mad. Pick is in for the Seahawks. I mean, could Shador go here? If they're not totally sold on a guy like Sam Darnold, which I don't think they should be sold on Darnold, but it's actually that's a possibility. Pick is in for Seattle. Look at that. Wow. That's hilarious. So announcing the pick here is Sean Alexander. He was a really solid running back in the mid 2000s. All right, Sean, get on with it. What's the pick already? So they go Elijah Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami. Sean Alexander completely like butchered his name, but it's Elijah Arroyo, tight end out of my, and that's a good pick. That's a good pick. Get some more weapons for Sam Darnold. They have Noah Fant there, tight end, but I like this pick for Seattle. Unfortunately, yeah, he did really well at the Senior Bowl, didn't he? Arroyo. That's where, like, I think Arroyo was kind of seen as maybe like a third round, fourth round kind of guy. Then it gets to the Senior Bowl. He crushes it there. And now you see him middle of the second round. One of those things where the Senior Bowl can really change. It can really change so much the whole process and like just like the value. Carolina is on the clock. Carolina took Teteroa McMillan earlier. Do they continue to try and build around Bryce Young? Do they go on the defensive side of the ball? Let's see. Do. Pick is in for the Panthers. So still another 23, 24 odd picks until the Niners are back up. Who is this? Oh, who is this guy? Nick Scorton goes to the Panthers, and this is a good pick for Carolina. Nick Scorton, edge player, bigger edge player, big guy, can absolutely kick in on pass rushing downs if needed on your early downs, going to be on the edge. He's had some really big games against some elite competition. I think for Carolina, this is a really good get for the Panthers. Derek Brown coming back from injury, Nick Scorton. They have some other players. I think they still have Jadeveon Clowney. They brought in some other guys in. You look at Jadeveon Clowney, J.C. Horn, Trevon Moehrig. So they have some players coming together, and that was the big thing. Defensively, the Panthers were just a mess. I think the offense started to figure it out. You add Teteroa McMillan to go along with that offense. That was a huge need for the Panthers. But building that defense now, that's another way to really help out your quarterback. You know, it's a team game, but helping out your quarterback, if you don't have to feel like we need to put up like 30 something points a game just to have a chance, then that helps your quarterback out. So Juke says, as I see it, the 49ers will be facing tight end armies in our division. Look, Fred Warner is one of the best to cover. So, I mean, that's really solid. Obviously, that's something that we can kind of hang our hat on. But I think we're going to need another linebacker, possibly a safety. You make a really good point, Juke, but I think maybe a safety like a Xavier Watts or someone like that who can come down and actually help cover those linebackers or help cover those tight ends. That would be a good call, I think. Still a lot of guys here from on my list that I would happily take. So the Titans pick is about to be announced. Oluwafemi Oladejo goes to the Tennessee Titans. So that he is someone who is on my list. And I'm going to have to take him off. Love Oladejo. This guy was kind of seen as maybe a fifth round guy. Goes to the Senior Bowl too. Lights up the Senior Bowl. Someone who KJ Wright is a huge fan of. He absolutely loves the game of football. He's going to be a captain on that Tennessee defense, 100%. He's a little bit raw. He did change positions while he was at UCLA, but still a really, really good pick. If they can develop him, I think that could be a really good player for Tennessee. That's someone who I would have really liked on San Francisco. So the Titans, the Raiders are just stacking picks too. The Raiders have traded down a couple of times. Interesting. Buccaneers on the clock. Jonas Sanker, Virginia Tech. Not a bad call. Yeah, you got Makuba, Xavier Watts. Those could be some options, I think, there for San Francisco at safety as well. Mm, mm. See, here's the good thing with if you're the Titans getting Oladejo. Oladejo is maybe the most highly motivated guy in the entire draft. I think when you talk about team guy, immediately at the Senior Bowl, and we're talking the Senior Bowl, seniors. We're not talking about like he's going in. There's a bunch of like freshmen. He immediately became a leader among all the seniors. He's someone who's going to be working day and night to improve his craft. I think the Titans, he's a good player and he has a lot of potential. But just when you talk about the leadership, when you talk about he's going to be doing all the right things, and I think it's just when you're a rebuilding team like Tennessee are, having players like that is going to be so key just to keep, because there's going to be times where I think Tennessee is going to probably lose a lot of football games, but having that kind of leadership is just so underrated. So we are about 20, just over 20 picks away from the 49ers being back on the clock. Alfred Collins. I'm curious myself to see. I got to look and do some more film now. Look at Alfred Collins. I kind of, if you told me you got Alfred Collins at pick 75, I'd be doing backflips and I'd be going crazy. At 43, it's obviously a lot earlier, but I still think it's a very solid move, and it's a move that the Niners needed to make. You don't really ever like to have to draft for need, but I think it's a good move for San Francisco to get Alfred Collins. And look, as we can see, there's still plenty of good players left. Darius Alexander, I would put, he's still a possibility. Look, if we want to double dip at defensive tackle, I mean, we're going to double dip or maybe even have three new defensive tackles by the end of when it's all said and done. But I could see us going with, I don't think he'll be available, but if Darius Alexander's there, you do it. There's guys later on, Jamari Caldwell, I like him a lot. Aeneas Peebles out of Virginia Tech, talking about Virginia Tech guys. Norman Lott is a rotational interior pass rusher. That's an option. So linebackers, the number one guy, I have him on my list here. Yep, Chris Paul Jr. I like Jeffrey Bassa, probably a fourth round guy. Someone who I think is a little bit underrated, but Teddy Buchanan out of California. If you look at the game, if you look at the Miami and Cal game, Cam Ward ended up playing really well, but Teddy Buchanan in that game was just everywhere. So I think Buchanan maybe in the fifth round is an option at linebacker. CJ West, yeah, from Indiana. Ty Robinson, yeah, from Nebraska. Ty Robinson, he just crushed the combine. So here comes the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers go Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback out of Notre Dame. Probably a guy who could have been a first-round pick. Injury concerns. A little bit of a similar story with as Will Johnson out of Michigan. But Morrison, like if he can stay healthy for that style of defense, he could be perfect. The man-to-man coverage, just be like, look, you're going to be out there on an island. He is a first-round talent. Injuries obviously are the concern. So it's one of those, if it works out, if he stays healthy, great pick. If he continues to have issues staying on the field, well, there you go. Green Bay is on the clock now, and the whole place is going wild. Is Tom Grossi going to be announcing picks? I think tomorrow. I think it'll be tomorrow that Tom Grossi will be announcing a pick for the Packers. The very good Tom Grossi. I don't think he's announcing a pick today. So still a lot of players on my list. Hopefully some or all of or a number of them will be available. We'll take one of the guys on my list at pick 75, but we're still 20 picks away. So a little bit, we're not going to start counting our chickens yet. Look at the crowds. Isn't it crazy? Yes, he has a pick announcement tomorrow. Gotta like Tom Grossi. What a good guy. So the Packers selection here. You have Jordy Nelson, then you have a couple of people from the Boys and Girls Club of America. But who will the Packers take here? I don't know what direction Green Bay are gonna go in. Benjamin, that's an interesting pick though that Tampa Bay made. I could see Trey Amos. Ooh, they go Anthony Belton. So the offensive tackle out of NC State. A little bit early, Anthony Belton going in the second round, but this guy is mean and nasty. Like he has that mentality of like he wants to embarrass guys. Really fun, when you look at offensive tackle, when you are, let's say, looking at their film or looking at their game tape, that it's usually not it's not the most fun, but man, this guy he is a different guy. For what it's worth, Matthew McConaughey I bet he did. McConaughey, he's a, what's it like, hook 'em horns? Isn't that what's the thing that they do? Hook 'em horns or something. He's a Texas Longhorns fan. But yeah, I like the player. This is a pick where I like Anthony Belton as a player, but this is early for him. So it's a bit like, actually, honestly, it's a bit like maybe to a more extreme thing, but it's a bit like how I feel about Alfred Collins to the Niners. It's like the player a little bit early. I turned off the microphone there. I didn't want you guys to be hearing me eating. Chargers pick is in. I like this. They're not messing around. They're getting the picks in. This is good. Melvin Gordon, here we go. He's announcing the pick. Trey Harris, the wide receiver. Apparently, he's not a fan of the ocean because of killer whales. Tom is melting down. Is that right? Is Tom melting down about Anthony Belton? I'll have to watch his reaction a little bit later. So Trey Harris, Ole Miss, you like the guy a lot. He brings, but this guy just has some of the worst drops where he's wide open, and I don't know. It's like he's a guy who'll make a great catch in traffic, and it'll be like, oh my god, a bit like Brandon Lloyd. He could make a great catch in traffic. You're like, how the hell did he do that? And then he has a wide open, no one within 5 yards, and he drops it. So a frustrating guy, but he will impress you and he will make some amazing plays, but he will frustrate you for sure. So solid pick, but I'm not gonna. I mean, Jalen Knoll, I'd be going Jalen Knoll for sure. So it's still another while before the Niners are on the clock, about 18 picks away. Chicago Bears are back on the clock and they have their pick is in. Chicago Bears, of course, going Colston Loveland. And then who did they go with earlier? I really liked the pick. Luther Burden, of course. Yeah, Luther Burden. Tom is melting down. Yeah. The best Tom meltdown was for Jordan Love. And he's just like, who are they going to pick? It's like Jordan Love. And he's just like, goes into the pillow like, ah. That was so funny. But look, hey, at the time, he hated that pick. And now Jordan Love is their franchise quarterback. So it just goes to show you never know. He was saying, I remember watching that a number of times. And he was saying, he's like, oh, I really want, it was like Denzel Mims or Patrick Queen. And Patrick Queen is a very, very okay linebacker. And Denzel Mims, I'm not even sure if he's still in the NFL. And that was 2020. So, but now they have a franchise quarterback in Jordan Love. So even sometimes picks that I love in the moment, they don't turn out well. Picks that I hate in the moment sometimes do turn out well. So you never know. You never know. That's funny though. He's not a fan of the ocean. Well, I guess going to Green Bay, I mean, there's no ocean there. There's no killer whales there. So he's got to be, Anthony Belton's got to be happy. Pick is in for the Bears. Do the Bears continue to build their offense? I think that they now pivot towards the defensive side of the ball. Maybe they could. I don't. Maybe they could go offensive tackle or maybe running back. Who are some? I mean, there's Caleb Johnson, but who are some of the better running backs available? Cam Scatabo, interesting. I don't think that would be their type of guy. Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. I do like Dylan Sampson a lot. The Jordan Love clip is gold. It's worked out well. Yeah, it's worked out really well for the Green Bay Packers. I mean, Jordan Love is not the perfect quarterback. He's not a top 5 quarterback. Maybe I think top 10. You could kind of, some people might make an argument, but he's a good quarterback. He's good enough to, like, the Packers have been in the playoffs and what have you. So I think he's good enough if they get Matthew Golden. But that was such a funny clip though. But yeah, Dylan's. I mean, there's a lot of running backs who are still available here. I just don't know if I think that the Bears are going to pivot and then go more on the defensive side of the ball. Like if you look at the edge, could the Bears take a chance on Mike Green? But there's also some other good edge rushers: Landon Jackson, Princely, Umanmielen. I like Umanmielen. Josiah Stewart. So all kinds of trades coming in, coming out. Chicago. The last time the player came out to announce the pick, he was saying the 2025 NFC North champion Bears. Got some balls saying that when you're in Green Bay. That's also putting a lot of pressure on. The Bears have not finished better than 500 since 2018. Holy moly. Like, I know as a Niner fan, last year was really tough, but imagine not having a winning season in like 7 years. That's crazy. Is this Seth Rollins? Seth Rollins, the WWE superstar, Bears fan. Look at that suit that he's wearing. Holy moly. That is something. They are antagonizing the Green Bay. He is going in on them. Seth Rollins, holy moly. That's so funny. Wow. They are really going all in. Seth Rollins is talking some trash. This is hilarious. They're a little, I look. I think the Bears have had a really good offseason, but they got to back up this talk. Okay, Seth, announce the pick. Oh, Ozzy Trapillo goes to the Chicago Bears. So they are building that offense now. Wow. I mean, you look at Rick Diaz. Good evening, my friend. I'm coming from Chicago, the big city, the windy city. I'm a diehard North Carolina fan. Do you think we're going to get a kicker? That's a question from Rick Diaz. We're not going to draft one. I think that I don't even know if there's any kickers projected to be drafted. I do think that we bring in either a veteran kicker, like a free agent kicker, or else an undrafted free agent kicker to compete with Jake Moody. I have almost no confidence in Jake Moody. I know people will say that it is injury and blah blah blah, but I have basically no faith in Jake Moody when he goes to kick a field goal. So they better bring in some competition for sure. Do I think it'll be a draft pick? I don't think so. I don't think that the Niners will use draft capital. I mean, after using a third round pick on a kicker who's not even good, I don't think that we'll use any more draft capital on it. But I think that there'll be whether it's a veteran guy or else it'll be an undrafted free agent. But there will be competition, that's for sure. But yeah, Ozzy Trapilo goes to the Bears. The Bears continue to build their defense. Speaking of Rick, you're in Chicago, but the Chicago Bears offense, wow, they've just gone all in, and I get it and I understand it because if you put Caleb Williams in the best possible situation to succeed, it's sink or swim. But also, you're helping out your young quarterback. This is what it's like a dream scenario. You go and get the Ben Johnson as your head coach. You build the offensive line. You got weapons. I mean, and then what you can do is maybe later in the draft, maybe from here on out, they kind of look at the defensive side of the ball, free agency next year. Like the Chicago Bears on paper, like are looking really good long term. Especially when you think about, you think about they got the head coach, they got the quarterback, but they think is the quarterback of the future. They're putting him in a great situation with weapons, offensive lines. So I think that they're doing it the right way that you would expect when you draft a quarterback to a not good team. I think it's a really good I think the way the Bears are doing is good. Now, the Bears here during the draft, and they've been talking a lot of trash. So they're going to have a lot to back up, and they're in a tough division. So, but the Lions on the clock. So the Lions are on the clock. The Lions in the first round, I think it was Tyleek Williams. Yeah, Tyleek Williams, the big defensive tackle out of Ohio State, they took. Um, let's see who the Lions go with here. Back to back, like rivals of the Green Bay Packers. They go Tate Ratledge, guard out of Georgia. Good pick for the Detroit Lions here. I like Tate Ratledge. He is a right guard. He was on my list here, so I'm going to have to update my list. But Tate Ratledge, immediate day one starter at right guard. It's never a bad thing to continue to build the trenches, and that's what the Lions have done. When you look at, of course they have Penny Sewell, Taylor Decker, Graham. Who's the? It's not Graham Glasgow. It's Frank Ragnow, and now you get Tate Ratledge. If you have a good offensive line, that obviously helps out Jared Goff a lot. It helps out the run game. That's It's never a bad idea to do that. Stu goes, my favorite reaction clip is urinating tree and 5 point vids when the Giants picked Kadarius Tony. Yeah, and look, isn't Kadarius Tony going to be like? What is he going to be? What's he doing? He's basically quit football, and is he going to play? I can't remember what he's going to do, but isn't he going to be like? Is he like a rapper or something like that? But I heard that recently that Kadarius Tony is basically given up on football, and here's the Raiders selection. So the Raiders getting Ashton Genty, and they've in the second round they've traded down a few times to just accumulate picks. So I'll have to watch that reaction clip though. So Raiders, I mean, they have so many directions that they can go in. Could they go Shador Sanders? I mean, at this point, remember Shador is still there. They could go Shador. People talked about the Raiders taking Shador with the sixth overall pick. Now it's pick 58. Sit him behind Geno. Let's see who the Raiders go with. Ooh, they go Jack Beck. Yeah, wide receiver out of TCU. So, which shouldn't be the first thing said about him, but unfortunately, Jack Besh's brother passed away in New Orleans. Remember, there was that incident where the car. It was what was it during Mardi Gras or something like when the car drove into the crowd of people, and unfortunately, his brother was hit by the car. Um, but as a player, he's a great prospect. Just one of those solid, fundamental guys. Runs good routes, right place at the right time, knows where to be. Look at his production too. Last season, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, playing at TCU. I think it's a good pick. The Raiders need weapons for Geno Smith. They have who's their number one receiver again, but you get Jack Besh. I think this guy's going to be a contributor right away. You have Brock Bowers there, of course, um, but I think this is a guy who could sneakily have a very good rookie season. Maybe again, he's such a fundamental guy. I think that Chip Kelly's going to have a lot of fun scheming him open. 6'1", 214, so good size. But I think that's a good pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. But they definitely need some help at at receiver in Las Vegas. And they've managed to pick up. They moved down a number of. They've traded down a couple of times. They've accumulated more draft capital. So you see, the Raiders are going to be picking again in about 10 picks, and then the Raiders have two. They have 3 picks in the third round. So Raiders going to be able to add a lot of talent to their roster, and it's sorely needed for the Raiders. Yeah, I like that pick for the Raiders. It fills a need. He's a good player, and I think he's going to be. You look at, yeah, they have yeah, you add, Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, Jack Bash. That's suddenly your offense is looking a little bit more scary on paper. I think that the Raiders are still a ways away, especially in that incredibly tough division. But I think it's looking a lot better. I mean, if you're the Raiders, it's starting to look better moving forward. So the Baltimore Ravens are on the clock. Malachi Starks was their pick in the first round. Ravens don't have a ton of needs. Um, could I see them going wide receiver? Well, they did sign. I think they signed, was it DeAndre Hopkins, who's you know getting up there in age. They have they do have a couple of was it Zay Flowers at wide receiver. We have so many needs. I don't know who to pick. Yeah, I think with San Francisco, I think it's going to be defense for a while. Um, my guess is that with these next two, we have 2 more picks today. I think we probably go linebacker and defensive tackle, or linebacker cornerback, or defensive tackle cornerback, something like that. But let's see, if we look at linebacker, it might be a little bit early for Jeffrey Bassa, but you have Chris Paul Jr. there. I could absolutely see him as being someone to go after in the third round. I like Chris Paul Jr. In the fifth, maybe the fourth round, you can go Jeff Bassa. I like Teddy Buchanan in the fifth round. So there's guys later on at linebacker who I think, I mean, look, we got Fred Warner in the third. We got Dre Greenlaw in the fifth, Aziz undrafted. So I know that they like D Winters, but is he going to be a guy that you can just pencil in as a starter? He's not at that level. But I think Chris Paul Jr., if we're going to go in the third round with a linebacker, I think it's Chris Paul Jr. Now, talking cornerback, we still got some really good options here. Trey Amos from Ole Miss, Azariah Thomas, Darian Porter he's a bit of a project. He's a work in progress, but potential through the roof. Quincy Riley, the 49ers met with him. Noel Williams, local guy, played at Cal. Jacob Parrish. I really like Kobe Bryant. I'm probably higher in Kobe Bryant than most people are, so that's an option. I'm thinking DT and LB today. Like a big old line. That's true. See, here's the thing on the offensive line, though. There's just been a few. There's been like some guys who've just gone. Like even at offensive tackle, I don't really like anyone at offensive tackle in the third round. Like you could sell me on Charles Grant, you could sell me on Logan Brown in the fourth round. But then again, if you look at, I like Jackson Slater, but again, a third round, Wyatt Milam, maybe Marcus Bowe, that could be an option. You do have Jared Wilson. He's only a 1-year starter though, so he's not going to be. But Jared Wilson is not going to be a day one starter at center. Tyler Shuck, though, that's crazy. Noel Williams, Kobe Bryant is too light. Okay, so, and I think when you see Kobe Bryant, he looks quite thin. But when I watch Kobe Bryant play, he's not afraid. The weight that he does have, he is not afraid to use it, and I think he's really, really good when it comes to I think he's really good at what he knows how to use his weight to bring down players. Like he's not going to try and straight up just tackle a guy, but he's going to throw his body at the legs of at the legs of like a running back and bring him down. I think he is physical enough to be able to play in our defense. But look, Darius Alexander is still there. I wonder if Alexander goes here to the Ravens. That's just such a Ravens pick where a good player falls and they just wait and they get him. Cameron Williams, I'm not a fan. Not a fan. He's just a penalty waiting to have. He just the amount of penalties that guy accumulates. It's just. I think he was the most penalized offensive lineman or offensive tackle in college football. Not a fan of Cameron Williams. I mean, could he develop and could like I'm not saying it's an impossible. It's impossible, but I wouldn't take him until like the fifth round. That's just me though. I like if you're getting all kinds of penalties in college and penalties like deservedly so, like a lot of holding. I'm not a fan of that because when you come to the NFL, then it's going to be magnified. They'll know. So what's funny is with the Ravens is that what here's what the Ravens do. It's really funny. The background, like they're showing the Ravens war room, and you see the background, and there's the whole draft board, but it's actually last year's draft board. So they just kind of do that to troll people. Yeah, I'm not a Cameron Williams guy. If I'm going for an offensive tackle, I'm probably going maybe Logan Brown. So if I'm going for someone purely, I'm just going to have to develop. If I'm going real late in the seventh round, Gerard Christian Liechtenstein, yeah, he's penalties all over the place. So I wonder if the 49ers would consider if the Niners wanted to trade up, if the 49ers wanted to trade up, let's say, and ooh, the Ravens go Mike Green. Mike Green, obviously incredibly emotional right now. He had a long wait, a wait way longer than he probably would have expected or hoped. Mike Green is, look, he's a fantastic prospect. If he was, if he didn't have any off field thing, I would have gladly taken Mike Green at 11 overall. There's allegations against him, and these are allegations. He hasn't been convicted of anything, but I think that took him off a lot of teams' boards. There's the famous rep, and they're probably going to show it. Yeah, against Josh Connerly, they just showed it there, where Mike Green basically just threw Josh Connerly. Remember, Josh Connerly went 29 overall to the Commanders. Mike Green he's a guy who could be a 15 sack a year guy. The problem is it's the off the field issues. Pick is in for the Denver Broncos up next, but Mike Green, top 10 player. So, but at this point, I think it's absolutely worth it. Where do I research my stats? That's a good question. I kind of research it all over the place. Whether it's like there's like various draft sites which I use. There's the Draft Network. There is Pro Football Network. There is. I don't really kind of laser in on one. I'll use like NFL.com, like the combine tracker. But when I watch games, I have like a weird thing where I have like a pretty good memory when I watch the actual games of the players, the announcers will talk about certain, let's say in terms of like the most penalized guy or whatever. That's how I remember. And it just a lot of those times those numbers just stick with me. So the Broncos got Jade Barron in the first round, I believe. Denver Broncos go running back RJ Harvey, UCF. Home run speed 5'8", 205. They did need a running back. I would have thought maybe Caleb Johnson could have been an option. Is he may be an option for the Niners too, but Caleb Johnson, the running back, is still out there. Um, yeah, RJ Harvey goes to the Denver Broncos, and they need help at yeah, Javonte Williams never really lived up to the draft hype. Um, but I think that's a good pick. I have an outstanding with some things I do. I have a good memory when it comes to yeah, for whatever reason, if it's like I can like remember like players and the college they went to and the year they were drafted and what round. Um, but I also have a really bad memory when it's like uh let's say if I was introduced to like five people in a room, I'd be like, "Oh, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name?" And then like 10 minutes later, I'd be like, "What are their names?" I completely forgot. So, but there's certain things that I have a good memory with. Other things I'm just dreadful. So, yeah, no cam. I mean, look, there's good running backs here, and I think is there a sneaky need for running back for the 49ers? Christian McCaffrey says he's fully healthy. I'm going to believe him. He's getting a little bit older, a lot of tread on those tires, but the Commanders pick is about ready to come in. Commanders took Josh Connerly earlier. The Commanders go Trey Amos. The Commanders go Trey Amos. Ole Miss, that's a good pick for the Commanders. He's going to a good team, and that makes a lot of sense. And I have to take Trey Amos off of my he's gone now. So if I'm San Francisco, and what do you guys think? So if I'm San Francisco, I look at Darius Alexander is still there. Would you trade it's pick 62 is coming up. Would you trade pick 75 and maybe pick 113, move up to this spot here and take Darius Alexander, and then basically you're like defensive tackle? We've turned it into the worst position group probably in the NFL, the worst defensive tackle into one that has so much upside. I think that's interesting. That's an interesting proposition. I have a bad memory about how much money I earn when I'm doing my taxes. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to, you just can be, we can all be a little bit forgetful. Bears on the clock again. Tom is not happy. He wanted Trey Amos, blaming Wildflower. Yeah. And he wasn't happy with Anthony Belton either. No. I mean, look, again, to a bigger extreme, I think Anthony Belton, but I think it's a little bit similar to Alfred Collins. Like, I like the player a lot, just a little bit early. Yeah, I'm curious to get more. I want to hear more about from John Chapman what he thinks about Alfred Collins. But yeah, I like in pretty much, and I did like a lot of mock drafts, kind of myself. I didn't really post that. I haven't posted many videos lately, but um, in pretty much all of my mock drafts, I was going defensive tackle and edge, or edge and defensive tackle in the first two rounds. Now, were these the two guys who I was going for, like Mykal Williams and Alfred Collins? Probably not the two guys that I would typically have gone for. Like I think what my ideal draft when we talk like first and second round for the Niners would have been imagine that like we trade from pick 11 back to pick 17 with the Bengals, pick up an extra third round pick, and then you take Derek Harmon at 17. And in the second round, you get like a JT Tuimoloau or Donovan Ezaraku, and then you have the extra third. That's where I would have. But I'm putting faith in John Lynch, the scouting department, Robert Sala, Gus Bradley, that they, identified players who they think are really going to help. Um, so I do like the positions. I think that Michael Williams is gonna. I don't think he's gonna be. I think he has the potential to be just a solid guy. Like I think he could be like a Brandon Graham type guy. Yo, what's up? How we doing, Sports Talk Channel? Good to see you. It's been a while. So coming up next, so we're near the end of the second round. There's 3 picks left in the second round. So the Bears are on the clock again. I feel like oh yeah, this was their trade back with Buffalo. So the Bears have gone with Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, and they've gone with Ozzy Trapilo. I think that the Bears have been antagonizing the Packer fans, so they're on the clock again. But I think the Bears probably start going defense here. Or maybe do they go running back? Could they go Caleb Johnson, Cam Scatterbo? I don't know. I think they probably start going defense. They could definitely use some upgrades there. Almost at the end of the second round. But if I'm San Francisco, as we get a little bit closer, I mean, I think that maybe you could trade 75, the third round pick, and maybe pick 138, I think we have, and get to one of these points here if you want to get Darius Alexander. You know, it makes sense to me. So yeah, my list is still Darius Alexander, Jalen Noel, Azrae Thomas, Jared Wilson, Chris Paul Jr., Omar Norman Lott, Xavier Watts. Y'all still booing, huh? Thoughts on Jonah Monheim? Bear with me for 1 second, Stu. I will tell you about my thoughts on Jonah. Bears pick. I think they go defense. Shamar Turner. He was mentioned earlier in the stream about defensive tackle. I think Shamar Turner is going to have a great guy to learn from. Is Grady Jarrett, who the Chicago Bears signed, and it's a good pick. It's a pretty good pick here. If he was at pick 75 for the Niners, I would have been okay with Shamar Turner. Not the biggest fan, but I think it's a solid pick for the Bears. And I think the Bears, what you're going to see now is they're going to continue to build that defense. But back to the question here. So, Stu asked thoughts on Jonah Monheim. I think he could be in play for the 49ers maybe in the fifth round. And the exact reason is you laid it out there perfectly. He has that versatility. So if you have a player, do I think Monheim will be a starter, a good starter in the NFL? I don't know. But I think that he could be someone who's really valuable to an NFL team because he's played so many different positions that let's say you have your 5 starters, and then maybe a lot of teams will carry what maybe like let's say 3 or 4 more offensive linemen on their 53-man roster. Well, if you have a guy like Monheim, you don't need to carry 4 more offensive linemen. You can carry just 3 more because he can fill in at so many different positions because he has the experience there. Well, the pick is already. I didn't even get a chance to finish that. Now we're moving. Chiefs pick is coming up. Dante Hall, the human joystick. So they go Omar Norman Lott. So that was someone who I liked, but and the Omar Norman Lott's going to have Chris Jones to learn from. So these guys are going to have really good mentors the last couple of picks. Um, see, I like Norman Lott, and he is a good player. The issue was he just didn't play that many snaps, and maybe that was just a Tennessee thing. But yeah, that's what Charles Davis is talking about now. They have such a they really um, they really rotated so often. But to go back to Jonah Monheim is that I think in the 5th round, it could be a really good pick because he potentially helps save you a roster spot somewhere else. So I think that's valuable. Plus, I think he could be serviceable at a number of different positions. So there's there's value in that. Do I think he'd be like a good starting player? I don't think so, but I think he's a guy who could come in. Let's say if your starting guard gets injured and he could come in, play, whatever, let's say 3, 4 games. And I think he wouldn't be losing you game. I think he'd be solid. Let's say you miss like a right tackle or miss your center. So I think I think his versatility is going to be that's a huge benefit for Jonah Monheim. That really just, it kind of increases his value. Like if he that's where like you could argue that he might be like a better value pick than, let's say, Jake Majors from Texas, because Jake Majors played only at center for 4. Jake Majors has a ton of experience there. And if you're looking at, we need a center, Jake Majors could be a guy where maybe you do think he can develop and be a starting center. Um, but if you think, I think that Monheim arguably brings more value because he can play those different positions. You're starting to see a little bit of a run on defensive tackle, and it's interesting that Darius Alexander, not one of those guys yet. I think maybe now is the time. If you're the 49ers and if you want Darius Alexander, now is the time to pounce. And I think if you wanted to move up with trade with the Eagles, move up 11 spots, give you the pick 138. Um, yeah, and if you want to ensure you get Darius, that's an option. I think that the Eagles are probably just going to take him. I bet you the Eagles are gonna take him, aren't they? That's such an Eagles thing to do. They got Jahad Campbell, and now they'll take, I think, maybe Savon Revel. Maybe Savon Revel from, East Carolina. Von Revel, he's not gonna have to play. Like, he got injured, I think it was an ACL last year. He's not gonna be pressed into duty. I mean, they have Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. So I think that could be a pick where they're like, we don't need him right away. We can let him get healthy, but he was seen as a top half of the draft, top half of the first round guy in terms of talent. So I could see that being the case. And then you see Revel in 2026, and he's just a monster. Yeah, KC just building that. You have a good defense behind. You have Patrick Mahomes. And you have a good defense backing up Mahomes. You're going to win a lot of games because Mahomes is, more often than not, he's going to win you some games. So, but Mahomes will be able to win you games, even But if especially if your defense can limit the opposition, unless it's like the Super Bowl where it's like you know. Why am I not hearing anything? The volume's just completely gone. So the Eagles, they got Jahad Campbell in the first round, second round pick. Look at this guy, Bo Allen. Now look at that for an outfit, huh? So with the 64th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, Philadelphia Eagles select Andrew Makuba. So they do go with a secondary, not Savone Revel, but Andrew Makuba, really solid safety prospect. They continued to build that secondary. I mean, they have such a great defensive line. Not really sure why there's no volume.
At Amazon, you'll find quality products you can trust at prices you'll feel good about.
I don't hear anything, but that's a good pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. Andrew Makuba, big hitter. If you saw the Texas and Georgia game, the SEC championship, Makuba he laid out a couple of guys, made some big plays too. Let me see what is going on with the. Oh, here we go. Now we're back with the volume. But yeah, I think that it's a good pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. They continue to build that secondary. You know, DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, Reed Blankenship, Darius Alexander still there. There's a lot of good players still left. Really, really interesting. So the Giants. So we're at the start of the third round now. The Giants are on the clock. Their pick is in, and they are honoring the servicemen, which is always great. Love to see that. Yeah. So I see. Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking, where could the 49ers go? I mean, if you want to keep building the defensive line, yeah, you have Josh Farmer, Ty Robinson, both going to be options. Do you want to look on the edge? I mean, Princely Uman is a guy who can just get right after the quarterback. You know, some potential slight off the field issues where he tried to, I think he wanted to like fight some fans. Um, you know, he switched programs during his college career and he went to Ole Miss, and I'm trying to think what program he was at before, but you know, it's he was playing against his old program, and the fans were like taunting him, and he just said, "Screw that! I want to fight you." And I don't think they actually fought, but it was a lot of jawing back and forth with each other. So Giants pick is in. We're 11 picks away now from San Francisco. This is pick 65. I should probably add a couple of guys too. Like I would be happy with Uman Mielen because I still think that there's so many good defensive tackles that can be had in the mid rounds. So Jason Sehorn. Here's the Giants pick, first pick of the third round. They go Darius Alexander. That's a damn it. Darius Alexander goes to the New York Giants, and I said that maybe we should have traded up with Philadelphia or Kansas City if we wanted to get him, but, clearly, had other plans. I think we go CB at 75 and LB at 100. Possibly, possibly. I mean, personally, I think that if we go, let's say if we get Chris Paul or if you quarterback, maybe Azraea Thomas. Azraea Thomas is an option. I like Kobe Bryant. There's Jacob Parrish too. Savone Revel is there. Again, probably not going to be a guy. Um, probably not going to be a guy who maybe doesn't start. But you have Azraea Thomas, Quincy Riley. I love Kobe Bryant. His game. I know that he's like a kind of a skinny guy, but I just think he's so much fun to watch. So the Chiefs traded up. So the Chiefs traded up. They go Ashton Gelati. So Omar Norman Lott and Ashton Gelati. Wow. There's still some really good edge players. Ashton Gelati. Solid pick there for the Chiefs. Uh, Edge player out of Louisville. I would have gone in other directions, but Princely Umanmielen, though, is a guy I could see us going after, um, as a guy who's just straight up, like, get after the quarterback. Defensive tackle, it's after a number of picks, it's looking a little bit thin for this point, but you do have Josh Farmer, Ty Robinson. I do like Vernon Broughton out of Texas, but I think you can probably wait and you go in the fourth round. Maybe you go Aeneas Peebles, Jamari Caldwell, CJ West, Cam Jackson. Still a lot of good players at defensive tackle later on. Yeah, if we're going cornerback at 75, I think we probably go maybe Azraea Thomas, Jacob Parrish. I like those two guys. But if a linebacker, I mean, if you go Chris Paul Jr., a linebacker, I like that. I would like that move. You go Chris Paul Jr., let's say at 75, and then at 100, you go Kobe Bryant, or maybe one of those other. We need too many starters to be true. That's true, but I think that if when Kansas City were like selecting at pick 63, I mean, if you go pick 75 plus pick 138, you probably get there. And you give up a late fourth, like basically a fifth round, late fourth round pick. But I think if you like, clearly they didn't like Darius Alexander as much as let's say I did, or else they would have made that move. But if you like someone, go and get them. You can always trade back later. Like you can always trade back from 100 to like 120 and get another fourth round pick or something. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, look, we do need a lot of players because a lot of our star players are older, we'll say, for the most part. So youth injection is not a bad thing. Pick is in for the Cleveland Browns. Then after the Browns, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks for the fourth. We're about 9 picks away. So on my list, we have Jalen Noel, Azraea Thomas, Jared Wilson, Chris Paul Jr., Xavier Watts, Princely Umanmielen. Those are 6 players who I would really be happy with taking. Who else? Jalen Royals could be an option. Hmm. Do, 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 do. I mean, I think at 75, Savone Revel would be worth the pick there, considering like it's a bit like the Cardinals going Will Johnson. Um, yeah, I mean, Savone Revel is someone that you can definitely go with. And I think at this point, like you're kind of okay with the slight risk, towards ACL. So and that was in September. See, I do wonder about his long speed. I don't think that. I mean, of course, there will be plays where he'll be asked to use that, but a lot of like the zone. The big thing is like, can you play your zone effectively? And I watching him, he can be super sticky in coverage, but yeah, if you're saying, hey, cover Tyreek Hill on a just a you know just a steam just a go route, I maybe wouldn't like that, but I think in zone he can do very well. Cleveland Browns select. The Browns go Harold Fannin Jr. Interesting. So this is a really interesting guy. 6'3", 241, listed as a tight end, can kind of do it all. Some people would argue that he is the more similar guy to, let's say, like a Debo Samuel-esque. Um, would have been interesting to see him with Kyle Shanahan, but the Browns looking to get some weapons. When you look at they got it was like Quinshon Judkins, or what? Yeah, it was Quinshon Judkins they got, and now you add a Harold Fannin Jr. So that's you and now the Browns they have Jerry Judy, they have David Njoku. The Vegas Raiders are on the clock. Did they just trade up? No. The Raiders are on the. I think the Raiders here could go Savone Revo. Yeah, the long speed is certainly a an issue, but I think that can be covered up a lot more when it comes to playing in like the zone defense, where it's basically just get to your spot. Raiders back on the clock. Raiders also have two picks later in the third round. I think that they could go Savona. I think that maybe his talent will be a bit too much to say no to. Let's see. This Raiders select Darian. So I got the position right. They go Darian Porter, the cornerback out of Iowa State. So and their comp here is Akella Witherspoon, which I think is fairly apt. Um, a lot of potential with Darian Porter, a lot of potential, a little bit raw, changed position, became a cornerback more recently. Um, but he is super athletic. I do agree that he is does play a little bit tight. I'm an FSU fan, and he is a good player. I agree with you. Yeah, I definitely agree. Um, Darian Porter, yeah, he's someone where I think you're going to have to be a little bit patient. And a team like the Raiders, look, Pete Carroll he knows defense, and he knows like he got Richard Sherman in the fifth round. He was able to build that like the Legion of Boom. So I think he'll be able to coach him up. He's going to a good situation. Um, and plus, I think he's going to go through some. I think there's going to be some bumps in the road for Darian Porter, but the Raiders aren't expected to compete this year. So I think that Pete Carroll's a guy who can get the potential out of him, and it's okay when you're still in a rebuilding year like the Raiders have been for 20 years, um, where you can make those mistakes and learn from them. So I think it's a good pick for that team. For a team like, let's say, like the 49ers, who I still think that we're very much in a we can win now, or if you were like a win now team, maybe wouldn't be as good of a fit. But So if I'm the Patriots, I think Savon Revel is a good option here because again, they're a team like they're not going to be. I think that they could go because they're not going to be expected to compete, but he could be incredibly good. Idris Elba is making the pick for the Patriots, or is he helping to make the pick? All right, let's come on. Let's get it. So the pick is in. Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams has got a lot of buzz lately. You look at the production there last year, almost 1,200 yards. I think 49er fans, we would probably have some PTSD from Kyle Williams, the wide receiver that we had, and his blunders in the NFC Championship game. But you know, I think for the Patriots, it's a good pick. He is a super productive guy, really good route runner, is going to help out Drake May in a big way. So they got Travion Henderson earlier, and they get Will Campbell, and now they get Kyle Williams. So these are just some guys that they can really help to um, build around Drake. You get the explosive home run hit at running back in Travion Henderson. You get Kyle Williams, just a good fundamental guy. The Lions have traded up. The Lions traded up. Who did they trade up with? But the Lions clearly want to get ahead of some teams. J. Frank Parnell, how we doing, my man? Good to see you. So, it was with the Jaguars. So the Jaguars trade down. They want to recoup maybe some of the picks that they lost from trading up to get Travis Hunter. Oh, Terrion Arnold just flames the Packers. Oh wow! If you guys aren't watching, like what Terrion Arnold? Oh, wow. Isaac Tesla. They go Isaac Tesla. One of the more fun names to say, by the way, Isaac Tesla. Um, Ashton Genty, he's going to make a big difference. So they go Isaac Tesla, who tested through the roof. Isaac Tesla, man, I kind of like his teammate a little bit more, Andrew Armstrong, but you saw Tesla do really well at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, he blew it up, and I think he's someone who's he's a really tough guy. He's going to go in, make the blocks, going to complement that offense. So what is the so the Jaguars get two third. So the Jaguars move back. Okay, so the Jaguars move back from 70th to 102. But they get two third-round picks next year. So that's pretty interesting. We're also getting near the 49ers pick. So the pick is in for the Saints. Then there's three more picks: the Bills, Jets, Broncos, and 49ers. Wide receivers coming off the board might have to. So there, look, if we want to go wide receiver, I'm going Jalen Noel. I think he'd be really good in this offense. But some other options you could throw out there, Jalen Royals could be an option. And then, yeah, I would say probably. And then, you still have Alec Iomenor. Alec Io Maynor? I'm going to say Alec Io Maynor. Did he add an A in the last few months? I love saying that name, Isaac Tesla. Uh, it's not Tesla, it's like Tesla. But yeah, wide receivers are going off the board. Go Niners says, yeah, let's go. Only a few picks away. But Jay Frank, I'm doing good, man. How are you? The So yeah, if we're going wide receiver, yeah, there's Jalen Noel and there's Jalen Noel and Jalen Royals. If that's the route we want to go. If we want to get another weapon, tight end, you have Gunnar Helm. That's an option. I'm still of the. I think we got to stay. I think we got to stay defense. So I would probably go defense. Now running back, Caleb Johnson. That could be tempting, and we know the 49ers love getting their third round running back. I like Dylan Sampson too. Like Horton from Colorado State. Torrey Horton, I think, is it? Yeah, Torrey Horton. I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen much. Don't really know of him that well. Missed most of the 2024 season with a knee injury. So that's not ideal. But 6'3", that's a good size. Something that we could definitely use in San Francisco. Good size. Yeah, he was just someone never really on my radar. But feel free to fill in, Jay Frank, if your thoughts on Horton, if you'd like to. Yeah, I think Jalen Noel and Jalen Royals. If you want to go wide receiver, I don't think we're going to go wide receiver though. I think what the Niners are going to do is they're going to go into free agent. I think what you'll see is maybe like, would we pick up like Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen? There are veteran guys because Demarcus Robinson's going to be out for the first 3 games, apparently, according to Mayoko, for his DUI last November. And then Ayuk is I'm guessing Ayuk comes back mid-season. So you have Jennings, you have Pearsall, and then you have Cowie. And then you do have a couple of veteran guys like Russell Gage, but I think you're going to need some guys who can play right now, and I think you probably go with the veteran guys. Now, maybe in the 7th round you pick a wide receiver, but I think we're probably going to stick with the defense. Is my prediction. Alrighty, 4.41 at the combine, one beast in the smaller. And look, Colorado State. That's where isn't it Trey McBride? I think Trey McBride, the Arizona Cardinals tight end, went there. Is Romeo Dobson? I remember not being too. Yeah, he was complaining about. I just don't think that he wouldn't get enough targets in San Francisco. I mean, would I like him as a player on the team? Yeah, but I just don't know. I don't think he'd get enough targets. He wouldn't be happy in San Francisco. Saints pick. Vernon Broughton. They go with the other Texas defensive tackle. Horton probably no sooner than pick 100. Yeah, look, we pick at 100, we pick at 113, and then it's 138, I think. So I'm kind of the opinion that where I'm leaning right now in terms of need, but also factoring in value, guys I'm looking at are Chris Paul Jr. at linebacker. At edge, I'm looking at Princely Umanmielen. At cornerback, Azraia Thomas. I'm looking at Jacob Parrish as well, the cornerback. At safety, Xavier Watts. I know in the chat we like Jonas Sanker as well. I'm a Xavier Watts kind of guy, and that's a possibility. I mean, 13 interceptions over the last 2 years is crazy. Now we did bring in a bunch of. I mean, we brought in a bunch of safeties in free agency, but none of those guys are. It's like Richie Grant and Pinnock, and so they're none of them are guaranteed a spot. So the Bills pick. Now we're only a couple of picks away from the 49ers pick. So after this, there's two picks, then the 49ers are on the clock. Select Landon Jackson, defensive end. That's a good pick for Buffalo. Landon Jackson, elite against the run. Just super, super good, I think, against the run. Good size, really good job at the combine. And I think he's a solid. Like, I think the Bills are going to jerk us again. So yeah, getting TJ Sanders, I think, really hurt. That was annoying. But Landon Jackson is just a good football player. I'm going to be like Chris Collinsworth, but he's just a good football player. I think he's someone who learning from a guy like working with Joey Bosa. I could see Landon Jackson just being a guy who, 7 years later, you're like, he's just been getting like maybe 7, 8 sacks a year, maybe like a Sam Hubbard. That's the kind of generic, like solid defensive end guy I kind of will kind of refer to a lot. But someone who I think, maybe 7, 8 years from now, you're like, oh, he's kind of average like 6, 7 sacks a year, solid, good against the run, and he's a contributor on a good team. When's the second run of QB is going to start? I don't know. Now, could the Jets go Shedeur Sanders here? Could the Jets go Shedeur Sanders? They have Justin Fields. Here's the Jets. There you go, Azareye'h Thomas. That's a good pick. They go Azareye'h Thomas, Florida State. So I have to take him off my list. Good pick for the Jets. I like it. Someone who I would have been absolutely happy with. And the Jets, you have Sauce Gardner, you have Michael Carter in the nickel, and then you have Azareye'h Thomas. That's a good pick. Jets doing a good job, I think, in this draft. You got Armand Membu, Azareye'h Thomas, and then who do they get in the second round? Jets got Mason Taylor, the tight end. Yeah, they've had a good draft, I think. Yeah, Azareye'h Thomas. I would have liked it, Juke. I know you're a Florida State guy. Second run, yeah. Because who's the next quarterbacks to go? It's going to be Shedeur at some point. There's going to be was it Will Howard? Those are kind of are they like the next kind of consensus, like two guys to go? Jalen Milroe. Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel, yeah. Jalen Milroe could be a good pick for someone. Azareye'h, man, he has that room on lockdown. He was telling people to calm down, and they listened. So we have the Denver Broncos. It's the Denver Broncos have a pick, and then San Francisco. Alberts Revel. Yeah, that's crazy, Jay Frank. Yeah. I mean, Savon Revel, I would have thought he'd be gone by now. I mean, maybe the medical evaluations weren't as promising as maybe kind of hoped, just because, look, he did tear his ACL, but that was like early in the season. So, you know, I mean, you'd think at this point they'd be like, okay, he should probably be ready for training camp, but maybe not. Maybe the recovery hasn't been as smooth. Jordan Birch assessment. Yeah, the edge player out of Oregon, but he's massive size guy. I think in a 3-4 end, I think he'd be really good, Jordan Birch. For San Francisco, look, if you're doing like a big formation, could you have him on the end? I think you could, and then he can maybe kick inside. But it seems like although Birch is like a much bigger, I think Birch is a much like he's a bigger guy than like a Michael Williams. But you have Michael, you have Yetur Gross Matos, guys who probably play on the edge on rundowns and then kick inside on passing downs. Um, I like Birch. I mean, the Oregon defensive line I really liked. I mean, love Derek Harmon. I think Jamari Caldwell in the fourth round tomorrow would be a great selection for the Niners. Um, Birch is he's I think he's a solid. If we took him, I would not be unhappy because he's also with the size that he has. Maybe you could try kicking him in, yeah, like on a more like permanent basis. Maybe you don't have to have him play the edge. He's someone who could get after the quarterback. So that's an interesting pick where you're kind of changing his position a little bit. Um, but I wouldn't hate the pick by any means. Yeah, because he's listed as an edge, but you look at his size. He's 6'4", 280. I mean, you know, I think it's possible. And he ran what 4.67. I mean, if you could kind of get him playing inside, he on passing downs especially, and maybe, I mean, Jay Frank says, yeah, Charles Grant, that could be an option. Um, if I think maybe at a pick 100, like Charles Grant, or maybe like Logan Brown from Kansas, I could see. That could be an option. But yeah, Niners could take. Yeah, I mean, you're talking Jalen Noel, Savone Rebel, Birch, Winston, the safety from Penn State. So the pick is in for the Denver Broncos. So the 49ers, we are back on the clock. 49ers back on the clock. The pick is in for Denver. Denver have gone with Jade Barron, and they went RJ Harvey. Everyone's trolling Green Bay so hard. It's so funny. Oh yeah, earlier. Oh, I'll wait until after the pick. Oh, the Broncos go Pat Bryant, the big wide receiver out of Illinois. Birch's profile says he drives alignment into the QB, which reminds me of Justin Smith. See, and that's the thing. If we were playing a more like a 3-4, I think as like a 3-4 end, he'd be really good. Um, could could he be? Because like I just wonder if could he be? Could he play inside on a full time basis and be kind of? I mean, I think he could definitely play inside on in passing situations, pass rushing situations. On early downs, if you want to, maybe he's just like your designated interior pass rusher, which brings a lot of value, and that's a possibility. Pick is in for San Francisco. So the pick is in for San Francisco. No trade. I'm thinking that we go. Um, Let me see. I'm thinking that we go Jared Wilson or Chris Paul Jr. Let's see. Let's see what the 49ers do. Julian Peterson out to make the announcement. Here we go. So the 49ers do go linebacker. We go with Nick Martin out of Oklahoma State. Not what I would have done. Not what I would have done. He missed games with a knee injury last season. I'm just going to have to defer to John Lynch and and Robert Saleh. Look, we've been able to draft. We drafted Fred Warner in the 3rd round. We drafted Dre Greenlaw in the 5th round. I have faith in the ability to draft linebackers when we like someone. Going a little bit earlier. Nick Martin was not on my list of who I thought we'd be taking there. Yep, I would have thought he'd be available later on. I would have thought he'd be available maybe at pick 113, pick 138 comfortably, but he wasn't really on my list, so he wasn't really on my list. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit more research into Nick Martin. But I'm kind of curious as well to see what the others think. Also, the Cowboys pick is in. So the Cowboys take. The Cowboys go with Savon Revel. Told you, Shifty, they suck at drafting. So they go Savon Revel. The Cowboys go Savon Revel. Unbelievable. That's what I would have. So Nick Martin. Let's see what they say about Nick Martin in the write-up. So Martin is an undersized linebacker. He's 6 foot tall, 220. He's missed most of the 2024 season with a season-ending knee injury. Love that. 2023. Look at that. He had the 4th fastest 10-yard split and 5th fast. So he is fast. 4.53 at the combine. He did actually have 6 sacks in 2024. He's also fast enough to spike cornerback. I'm gonna have to look at him. I didn't really pay much attention to him, to be honest. Yeah, 4.53 40. It looks like he sounds like a 49ers linebacker. And again, in a case like this, I'm going to defer to the expertise of Robert Saleh, John Lynch, with their ability to scout. We are getting laughed at by all the NFL analysts. Yeah. Maybe they laughed at some other picks we made that worked out. And the Panthers get Princely Umanmielen. Princely Umanmielen he is gone now. Unreal. All the guys I wanted now are going. It's like, come on. Like, could the Niners just 1 year do like pick the players that I like? That'd be cool. Umanmielen goes to the Carolina Panthers. Savon Revel goes to the Cowboys right after the Niners pick. Nick Martin. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you have to. When I look at, it's like Robert Saleh, he was able to find Jamien Sherwood for the Jets. Quincy Williams. I don't know if Quincy Williams was there before Robert Saleh, but they're able to identify talent at linebacker. Also, he's a senior. Was he at the Senior Bowl? Was I seeing there? Was he at the Senior Bowl? But that's one I'm going to have to put the faith into. Faith in Saleh and John Lynch. Underwhelmed, I would say. Niners do have another pick at pick 100, but yeah, a little bit underwhelming, I have to say. still a lot of good players left. This draft, I don't want to say that it sucks. I'll have to update this because Yuman Mielen is gone. So for pick 100, I mean, there's still a lot of good players, but they're not going to take any of the ones that I want. Because why would they, right? It is funny though. That I'm like, here's players that I had. Azrea Thomas just goes a little bit, just a couple of picks before. Savon Revel, Prince Yuman Mielen. Interesting. But I think, yeah, the Niners, we are probably getting slaughtered by the analysts. At the end of the day, look, it doesn't really matter where you're drafted. It matters like how they perform, right? So, uh, alrighty. Man, two player. I mean, Yuman Mielen, I really like. I'm gonna have to watch some Oklahoma State football and see. He missed a lot of time and missed a number of games last season. So curious to see what the thoughts are around on Nick Martin. Some of what they're saying is I do like what some people are saying though. I do like what some people are saying about him. Larry Kruger, for what it's worth, is a big fan. Seems violent and fast, and so I like that. I'm gonna have to watch him for myself though. He wasn't really on my radar, especially at this point. Uh, this draft sucks. Alrighty, guys. I might have to call the stream. It's 3:10 in the morning here. I appreciate everyone for being here. It's an interesting pick, this Nick Martin one. I'm gonna look into it and I'll do a video on my thoughts on that. But I might call the stream here. Just yeah, it's super late. But I think what I'll do is I'll probably I until I fall asleep, I will potentially join another stream, um, potentially another stream for just to kind of keep an eye on what the thoughts and whatnot. But thank you very much, Jay Frank. Appreciate you. Thank you for people for hanging out too. Super awesome of you guys to hang out with me during the draft. Let's just see who the Cardinals take. They've had a good draft, I think. And the Cardinals take Jordan Birch. Crying out loud, you got to be kidding me. Walter Nolan, Will Johnson, Jordan Birch. That's good. Damn Cardinals. Alrighty, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna head on out of here. I do appreciate y'all for hanging out. I've been live for 3.5 hours. It is past 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm gonna get some sleep. There goes your guy, man. Yeah, it's a good pick. I think it's a good pick, And the Cardinals, I think, are having a good draft, especially if Will Johnson is and can stay healthy. Man, that could be a really good draft for them. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate y'all for hanging out. Yeah, I'm gonna try and stay awake for the 100 pick, but yeah, it's super late here. But thank you again, guys, for hanging out. Appreciate you. We shall see you guys again very soon. Football season's still a ways away, but maybe we'll do some fun streams in the meantime. But thank you guys. Appreciate y'all. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Potentially, maybe I'll do tomorrow. We have a couple of picks, or maybe I'll do the 4th round tomorrow. But thank you guys. Take care. Let's see who The Texans select, and they go Jalen Noel. So the Texans get Higgins and Noel. So the Houston Texans get both Iowa State wide receivers. That's that's really interesting. Wow. So they get both Iowa State wide receivers. CJ Stroud is happy somewhere. Thank you guys. I'm going to head on out though. Appreciate y'all. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for hanging out. You guys are the best. Appreciate y'all.